Coffee and Cream with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Now Mookie with a shot to left, and it is gone, a home run. Deep into Manny Wood. Mookie Betts, when you're hot, you're hot.
Here's the 0-1 pitch swung on. That ball's hit deep to left field. Forget about it. That ball is gone. A 2-run home run for Wilmer Flores, and it makes it a 3-2 Giants lead.
Deep drive to left off the bat of Amaya. This ball's got a chance. Gone. Long home run for the rookie catcher, Miguel Amaya. And the Cubs lead 4-1.
0-1 pitch. Mateo hits it high and deep. Left field. Kemp back. Giving away to Butler. He can't make the catch. It bangs off the wall. Mateo around second. Pass third. He's going to try and score. Jorge Mateo, an inside the park home run.
That's a question everywhere, man. Every school, I mean, Georgia, man, every school is saying this, we ain't got enough big guys, right? But again, I look at skill sets. I mean, that's why you got guys like MJ, the 250, 255 pounders. You got Blaze, 260. And then the true emphasis on rotating and playing a lot of guys in there. So that way you could take 10, 15, 20 snaps off in the early season. That's 10, 15, 20 snaps you're going to get later on in the season. So I think that's the way you keep them fresh, is just to be able to rotate those guys in, take early snaps off of them so you got them late.
Hey, good morning. Coffee and Cream. Ravi Lula in for the first hour, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I'm Andrew Rogers. Ravi in the chair because DB is out at practice. If you guys check the forecast, you'll see that, well, today it's supposed to be in the high 90s, and then, what is it, tomorrow and Wednesday, over 100?
Yeah, like 101, 103, somewhere in there. Not great.
Oh, you don't want to run outside with all your pads on?
I mean, you could have stopped at, do I want to run outside?
I could have stopped at run.
Yeah. Unless I'm chasing a pickleball, I'm not running. But no, yeah, it's going to be a little toasty today.
Mm-hmm. I don't think you'll be playing pickleball Tuesday or Wednesday.
Well, I got some indoor places I can play too, so,
bougie.
Well,
Robbie's a little bougie.
I did join my gym specifically because they have dedicated pickleball courts.
Is that going to be a norm now?
I don't know.
Every gym just going to have pickleball courts? Because it seems like that's all anybody wants to play recreationally. If I'm going to like do an activity either as a couple, like with the fiance, or if you just kind of like drive past a park, you'll just see people on the tennis courts not playing tennis, but playing pickleball.
Yeah, I think it's going to be for a lot of the places that have probably not replacing basketball courts, but like if they've got a tennis space, racquetball space, that kind of stuff, a lot of those are being converted into pickleball courts, which I'm thrilled about. The more, the better.
Now, did you play pickleball this weekend?
I did. I played on Saturday morning with this
Doesn't shock me.
Group. I know. I've actually, I've been busy. I've only been playing like 2-3 times a week instead of 3-4 times a week. So I've had to,
at least you're staying active, right?
Yeah, I had to cut back a little bit, but I don't know. It's fun. I started playing like a year ago, and I just got addicted, and so now I play way too much.
Gosh, it didn't seem like I even had a weekend. I was telling you that coming in today.
Yeah.
It started at Bell West Prep on Friday.
We were both there separately.
Didn't even realize it, but
I think I saw you walk by at one point, but by the time my brain registered, like, oh, say hi to Andrew, you were like too far, and I was like, oh,
I just
had one of those moments.
I'll just keep walking, right? No, first off, what a showing for week 0 football. And a good matchup at that. I don't think a lot of people gave Prep enough credit going into that game for what they ended up putting on the board. What were they down 6 at half? And then they ended up scoring out a half and were leading 14-13 at one point. Yeah. It shocked me because I was standing on the sidelines before the game. I was talking to Jacob Padilla, and, we just kind of went back and forth and just talking about what we saw on the field just prior to warm-ups. And, I think it was him that asked me, at what point does Huffman pull Kalen?
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Just because the idea going in was this is probably going to be like a 55-7 game.
Yeah, they thought they were going to wax him.
Right. Yeah, it turns out Creighton Prep had something else in store for them. And all of a sudden, you make some big plays on defense.
Mm-hmm.
You start eating the clock a little bit. The wind became a factor on a lot of DK's passes. It didn't seem like he had great touch on the ball, couldn't really find his rhythm. And boom, this game stayed close from start to finish.
Yeah, well, and it honestly could have been a lot scarier for Bellevue West. Creighton Prep fumbles on their opening drive inside the 10-yard line as they're driving to go score. That could have, I think, really changed the tone of the game by immediately putting pressure on Bellevue West. They had another fumble, I think, in the fourth quarter after they'd gotten Bellevue West to turn over on downs, and they had a chance to go take the lead back or at least tie. So they had opportunities to have it be even more of a game than it was, which it was 2014 until very late in the fourth quarter. I mean, Bellevue West tacked one on at the very end. Yeah, the very, very end, like under like a minute, like basically a minute left or something to give themselves a little insurance. But, I think a lot of people were on the page you and Padilla were at, where it's, hey, Bellevue West is going to kind of run away with this. Prep is super young, which they are. That
was the thing. It was,
it's not that they didn't think they were talented. It's just you're dealing with a group of
unknowns, right? Like
unknowns.
You just didn't really
versus
you didn't
a
know
group,
what to expect with that group.
Yeah, versus a group of what you thought knew exactly what to expect from at Bellevue West with Kalen and Hall and McMorris especially. I think they got kind of a wake-up call a little bit where, maybe they're not as far along as they thought they were. Maybe they exposed some.
Could be first game jitters.
Yeah, very easily could be first game, first week deal. It's early, so maybe they're in terms of in the month, it's earlier than the rest of the games. I know they got an extra week on the front end, but maybe it throws off your internal timing a little bit. It was interesting, but I think all the credit in the world has to go to Prep because those were a bunch of young kids. I was sitting right behind the Prep sideline, and after the first drive where Bellevue West scored, after Prep fumbled and then Bellevue West went down and scored, some of their coaches were like, hey, this is varsity football, guys. Like, this is what it's like. You've seen it now. It's like time to adjust and get out there. And to their credit, when I heard that, and I was like, yeah, it might be a long night for you guys at varsity football.
Right.
Turns out they made those adjustments and they were ready to roll. I was thoroughly impressed with the ability of Creighton Prep to not be really flustered by all the talent on the other side of the ball.
Well, and Prep had every chance to really take a nice sizable lead in this game too. Let's just take that first drive, for example, when Prep was coming back down 7, and I think it was before the kick. No, it was right after Bellevue West got called for running into the kicker. So Prep was going to put points on the board. They ended up missing the field goal, but because of the penalty, they got an automatic first down because it was 4th and 4, I think, at that point. And then the very next play call, because Prep was running the football a lot on the first play of each new drive, and Caniglio does a really nice fake, gets the entire Bell West defense to bite, has Michael Burt going toward the corner of the end zone and just barely throws it a step in front of him. And I thought, man, if Prep is going to win this game, they have to make those plays. And I'm not saying you have to be perfect.
No.
But when that's something you can't miss against this Bell West team.
Well, and it's one of those things where you get the play call right and you beat them. When you beat them, you have to take advantage of it. And that was the thing that I don't think Prep was quite able to take advantage of, were some of those openings that they created. Honestly, it's not even like Bellevue West gave them some openings, but they created openings for themselves, and they weren't always able to convert and take advantage of those. So like it really could have been an even closer game than it ended up being. And I will say, like, Caniglio had some really nice moments. He had a deep ball that frankly might have been the best ball thrown all night by either team, right? And that's, you're talking about, 4-star Danny Kalen on the other side. I thought that was the best ball all night, was a ball down the middle, deep ball from Caniglio. They ran the ball really well and effectively. But one of the things I kind of was Yeah, and I think they'll be able to take advantage of this later in the year. Caniglia with those ball fakes, like you mentioned, where he would, do a fake the handoff, and then he would hide. He was really good at hiding the ball, and then doing a kind of a naked.
He kind of did like an Aaron Rodgers, like slow strut as he turned.
Yeah,
his body
he
around.
like really sold him, and then he would come around on these kind of naked QB bootlegs, and like I was really impressed with some of that. He's got to figure out how to make some of those plays, like you were talking about, the pass to Burt after he sells it like that. But if you're able to throw the defense off that way, like there's going to be some good things that happen for Prep down the road because of it. And unfortunately for them, they weren't able to take advantage of those on Friday. But they kind of went from being, I think, a little bit overlooked this year to everybody's going to be paying attention for the next couple of weeks at least, just to see, hey, was that for real? Was that just up for the first game? What was that? Because if that's who Prep is, they're going to have a lot more to say this season than I think people imagined.
Talk to the TV guys that were there. I don't think they expected to be there past halftime. They thought, hey, I'm going to get my highlights.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the studio. We're going to edit some things up.
Get my Husker commit highlight packages. And that's
first week of high school football, game night or whatever they call it, starts the next week for them as they kind of cover a bunch of high schools in the area. But, you saw guys like Adam Kruger still there. You saw, Channel 6 still there. KETV, Matt Foster still there.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't leave because all you got highlights wise was one Bell West touchdown. You have, potentially you can, work in that running into the kicker penalty.
Yeah.
That ended up, did that turn into 6? No, they ended up fumbling.
That was the one they fumbled
so
on.
then it was a turnover. And then, Prep and Bell West get one more touchdown before the quarter, but you're not really going to settle in on those highlights going and then leaving. So you stay for the third and then you get Prep to score right away. And it's just like, well, now the game's too good to leave.
Right.
And so you just find yourself staying. At one point I saw, I think it was Channel 3. I think it was Kruger that left and had, his counterpart, Kelsey, come in and take over shooting the rest of the game so that he could get back to the studio. And I'm just like, you know what? As a media member, I get it.
Yeah.
And as a former TV guy, I get
TV
it.
world, yeah.
I really do get that. Now, on that running into the kicker penalty, it was funny. I met Brunts for the first time at the game.
Oh, nice.
Face to face. Like, we talk to him every day on the show, but I had never met him officially in person. And he was supposed to golf with me and Severe and Nick Hanley the other day, but just didn't. He sent BC instead. Brian Christopherson ended up coming instead, and so, that was the week you were filling in. It was Pinnacle Bank Championship week. So I'm talking to Brunt, and he knows how much of a degenerate I am. Like they're lining up for the field goal, and he looks over at me and he goes, "Hey, what's the line on the make or miss?" I'm like, you dog, you're so snarky. And
it was tough.
It was tough to predict. So I actually said it at, I think it was plus 111 to make.
Oh, okay.
It was about a 40-yard field goal, but he had the wind.
He did have the wind. It was, and I think it was long enough. I think it just kind of slid off to the side.
Oh, it was definitely long enough.
Yeah, it had the leg for it, which, plus 111 is probably fair on that.
Right.
40 yards is a good boot for a high school kicker, but
wind at your back. You're probably only with that wind too. You're probably only kicking about a 30-yard field goal if you get it in the air.
Yeah, there was some pretty good gusts there on Friday night, which you kind of mentioned. I think it impacted some of the passing, depending on you're switching sides obviously at the quarter, so kind of going with the wind against the wind. You got to make some adjustments on especially the longer throws there, which I thought was interesting. I'll be interested to watch Bellevue West offense this year. I thought maybe they would take a few more shots than they did. They were relying on a lot of quick hitters. They ran Kalen a lot. Like there was a lot of QB keepers there.
And I thought about it too. It all goes back to me or for me that Kalen just didn't have his best game. He wasn't completing passes that he normally
probably
makes.
Needs to, yeah.
And it seemed like he relied on his first option too much. I would have liked to see him, maybe let something else develop.
Go through the progression.
Yeah, there were a couple passes that I'm like, I know what you were thinking there, but you had to kind of overthrow a little bit in order for it not to be picked.
Throw him open.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, there were some things that need to be cleaned up. They'll go back in the film room and be like, okay, like, you got it out, right? You got all those first week jitters out.
Yeah.
Now let's lock back in, and things will work out. But yeah, going back to your point, there was just a lot to take away from week 0 football.
Yeah, and I'm excited. It's great to have real football games again,
opposed to all these scrimmages that we're seeing.
Scrimmages and
or 7-on-7
simulated games and 7-on-7s, and even preseason football on TV. It's like, I usually will turn it on at some point just because it's nice to have football on TV, but I don't know, man. I really struggle with some of these, especially second halves in these preseason games with guys you're never gonna see play in the NFL, right? Like, it's just I struggle a little bit with that. So it's nice to have one where the record actually counts.
I mentioned that I had a really busy weekend, and then we kind of got on the Bell West train. Yeah. But the other 2 days of my weekend were taken up by prospect baseball. I'm coaching for the prospects this year, and so we had some scrimmages that we needed to get nailed out so we could separate the teams accordingly. And we saw some really talented guys, from all over the state. There was a shortstop from Grand Island Northwest, Sam Dickelman, really good player, good fundamentals, respectful kid.
Yeah.
Really took a liking to him. Some guys from Millard West, which, is kind of obvious based on what we saw from last year. Like, Millard West is primarily a really good baseball team.
Yeah.
So, a few of those guys really stood out. Millard South had some, Millard North, Lincoln showed out pretty well. There was a couple from Lincoln East, the state champion in Class A.
Okay.
So, all in all, I'm just at the field. Saturday was nice. I was doing some coaching. Sunday was more trying to separate rosters.
Yeah.
And, in the past, because this is my first year coaching, in the past, I was told, like, it's really top heavy from top to bottom. And I get it with the top team. Like, you want like one like elite squad. But I said throughout the rest, I'm like, I don't want team 2 to really be that much different than team 4.
Sure.
Like, let's spread the wealth a little bit, make every team competitive. And, we tried to do that, and then things changed a little bit. Things changed, but we spent on Sunday, we were up in the press box. Thank goodness there was AC up there. Thank goodness. We're at Elkhorn Legion, and they had a wall unit.
Yeah.
But we spent probably 2.5 hours just trying to evaluate players and just see what we had. Like, we wrote down guys on paper, and we had to separate by position.
Yeah.
And normally there's an influx of middle infielders, not this year.
Yeah, that's odd.
Yep. And
really
then
odd.
There's not enough pitchers. Nope. This year there's plenty of pitchers
coming out of
or
your ears.
outfielders or whatever it is. So it's just funny how things kind of evolve as you start putting pen to paper.
Yeah.
But we spent, like I said, 2.5 hours crossing off names, writing somebody new. And then it's like, no, let's move him over to this team. And then, we're going to move this guy back. And then, no, this player has previous time spent with this coach. So let's keep that the same, because really at the end of the day for fall ball, it's all about the coach.
Sure.
It's not about the actual team.
Right.
Like, if a coach really fits in with somebody's skill or somebody's personality, that's going to better enhance a junior in high school, because that's who we're coaching, than actual instructional stuff, because they know what to do. They're playing fall ball. They're playing varsity baseball. Like, they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
And Omaha and Lincoln produce really good baseball programs for a reason.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sit back and say, all right, we're going to work on ground balls today.
I just can try and get reps in and try to stay sharp.
Yeah. And so that's what it really
maybe
boiled
work
down
on some
to
things.
Was trying to know somebody's personality without actually knowing their personality.
Which is really hard to do over 2 days of mostly just you're not trying.
Now, fortunately, majority of these prospect coaches are 2, 3, 4 year guys already. So they know what they're looking at.
Yeah.
But for me, it's hard to even, really put guys down that I'm like, I can really help, because I need to know them. I need to get to know them more.
Right.
So I'm just kind of trusting my head coach right now, and he's trusting me. So it's a really good dynamic there. But yeah, I spent all weekend at the baseball
say most
field.
of
it was 9 to about 2
Does Elkhorn still
Saturday.
play there at Tahazuka? Is that where it is?
Is that what that's called?
I think so. It's just like park. It's like kind of a city park in Elkhorn.
It was right by the Renaissance, like event center. I think that's what that's called, Renaissance.
I'm trying to remember.
So you said a word that I probably can't pronounce without hearing it again, or even
Tahazuka. I don't know how to spell it either, but I think that's the name of the park out there.
So the only way I knew how to get there was on Saturday. One of the other assistants pulled up Google Maps, and you know how you can like zoom in with satellite and then like see the field.
Yeah.
And then I marked the field when I did that, so I don't really even know where I went. Like, I just kind of followed my pin.
That's fair. Yeah. No, I feel that for sure. No, it's that's fun. The evaluation process and the talent evaluation process was my favorite part about coaching. Was just kind of skill evaluation. That kind of stuff was by far my favorite.
Oh, and I love looking at arm slot of pitchers. And I love like past velo, right? Because we had Jay Siola come and he it's his cousin goes to prep. Ziola, is he at Scott? Where is he? Oh man, I'm blanking on his school, but he's already committed to Nebraska. He's a junior. His brother's top 10 in the state in wrestling. Our twin brother? Yeah, his twin brother is. Maybe, I don't know why I'm getting the whole family mixed up. I'm pretty sure the cousins go to Creighton Prep. That's beside the point. He threw on Saturday. He's not going to play with us. He's going to play on the national team. But he was pumping like high 80s, low 90s.
Yeah.
And his stuff was filthy.
Nasty stuff.
But he's somebody that like you look at him and you're like, okay, like you don't seem like overly strong. He's getting built up. Like you can tell that Nebraska is saying like, all right, here's what you need to eat.
Right. Yeah.
But this man is just a player.
Yeah.
He just looks so smooth on the bump from start to finish. He struck out like 6 or 7 in 3 innings. I'm like,
that'll
good
work.
Lord,
That'll
my
work.
guy. Good Lord. Yeah, he played he played really well. But just like looking at little things like that, or even just fundamentals of, just your footwork on turns, on double plays, things like that. But the best part for me is like, this is what I tell every athlete that I work with, especially in baseball. Play confident. Just play confident. That's 50% of what baseball is.
Oh, yeah.
You already know how to do everything else.
Yeah.
Everything else, you know how to throw a ball to first base. You know how to field a ground ball. You know how to, catch a fly ball. But sometimes what you forget is your confidence level.
Yeah.
But if you play confident through everything, that's how you will separate yourself from the rest. If you make an error in the first inning, you may not see a ground ball until the 4th inning.
Yeah.
But you have to realize that every single pitch you're playing confident. Same thing with pitchers. You may give up a couple of bleeders. Well, guess what? That happens in baseball.
Yeah.
They don't hit it hard, but they find the hole. You have to play confident and stay into you.
Yeah.
Think about what makes you a strong pitcher, player, whatever it is. And that's what I try to push with these guys mostly.
Well, especially in, like you mentioned, fall ball, where you're not going to have a ton of time.
No, it's a month and a half.
Yeah, to tweak things and to like work on mechanics or anything like that. Just getting guys in the right mindset is maybe the most helpful thing you can do.
Yeah, so busy weekend, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about the Nebraska Podcast Awards, Coffee and Cream.
There you go.
Took home 2 awards.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you to Ravi. Thank you to Shane. Thank you, DB, Sasha as well. This was well-deserved from the family, right? I was just there to receive it for us. But number 1 in the airwaves.
Yeah.
And best guess.
There you go.
And speaking of guests, we have Sam McKewon on today. He'll come your way at 8 o'clock. We'll take a short break. More CNC next.
We'll be right back in 5 minutes. We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, we wouldn't be the old, wouldn't do Steve Spurrier run the quarterbacks on play after play. You know, it'd kind of be like, hey, we're in a situation we're running the ball here. Maybe it's a little more Heinrich. Hey, we're going to drop back and throw it. We're down 2 scores. Maybe it's Chuba. And again, they're continuing to try to elevate past each other, and they're such good friends too. So it makes it a healthy competition. So I don't think we can sit here and tell you right now, and I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think if something were to happen to Jeff, which I would never want to happen, obviously for Jeff's sake, we would feel really good about Chuba, and we would feel really good about Heinrich going out there and leading the team.
That's Coach Rhule following scrimmage play on Saturday. Gosh, we are so close.
I know. We're We're right there.
It's coming up quick too. I mean, you think about how high school football just got underway, and then boom, it's about August 31st, and that is the day Nebraska steps foot on the football field for the 2023 season. And
I mean, we're 10 days away, right?
Yeah,
it's the 21st.
Yeah,
we're 10 days away.
Not too crazy, right? Not too exciting. Oh no, it is crazy. It is exciting because football season's back.
There's light at the end of the tunnel, which is incredible. I'm thrilled. I'm really curious to see, because like Coach Rhule said, hopefully we don't see a situation where you're like, hey, we have to put the backup quarterback in. But I'm really interested to see the development. Like if they're that comfortable with Purdy and he's not just blowing smoke at us, I'm really interested to see that, because there were times last year. I mean, I saw him at Florida State a little bit. No, I mean, he didn't play a ton. And then last year, and I'm just like, I don't think this guy's got it, with Chuba. And so if they were able to develop him into a functional, high-level college quarterback, I will be really, really impressed, because whatever I've seen from Purdy at this point has not led me to believe that that's possible. So I'll be really interested to see whether it's
from gameplay or from practice.
Well, I mean, from gameplay, right?
Previous gameplay, yeah. I believe is where that assessment comes from.
Yeah, and so obviously you don't have a ton there, but whether it's the little bit he played at Florida State, the little bit he's played at Nebraska, or in spring game, you're kind of just like, I don't love what I see. So if they have turned him into a functional quarterback, I will be really, really impressed.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see who the number 2 guy is coming in, but it looks like they're leaning Chuba, which is funny because all spring it was Harburg.
Well, so
all spring it was, hey, this versatile guy that can kind of do a little bit of everything, and Chuba took a back seat. But something that I talked about with DB last week is Rhule just really took a liking to how Chuba worked on himself this offseason, and it seems like he's buying into Chuba's good reasons versus the ones that are easily critiqued. So it almost feels like Chuba's in the right spot now because he has the right coach.
Yeah, and that'll be, like I said, that'll be really interesting to see. I do think the first quarterback we'll see other than Sims is Harburg, but I think it's because they're going to have a package of quarterback run plays for him. I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but Satterfield likes throwing some other guys back there for QB run plays, other than his primary signal caller there. So I'll be interested to see how much they do that with Harburg, but I would say I would guess Harburg will be the first quarterback we see that's not Jeff Sims, just because of that. Even if Chuba has the edge as the number 2 guy, I do think we're going to see a package of plays for Harburg.
Now we'll get more into conversations from practice, throughout the show. But what we heard following scrimmage play with Coach White, Quentin Newsom spoke, Deshaun Singleton spoke, which was funny because I'm going to have to pound, DB when he comes in at the 8:00 hour, because he was on the Deshaun Singleton train early. And I'm like, okay, take your shot, right? And now shot, it seems DB. Like Deshaun Singleton is a favorite on this team. So let's just say DB knows exactly what he's talking about. That's fair. Omar talked. Is Omar your guy, Shane?
Yeah, he loves Omar.
Oh gosh, yes.
Did you get some Omar clips?
I mean, I've got.
How many times did you watch that interview? 3?
Maybe a few times. No, I did. I watched it a few times.
Yeah.
I watched it a few times. Yeah, I know. It wasn't nothing new.
Omar Brown spoke.
Pretty good time.
Yep.
Shane's just having a conversation with himself and Omar Brown over there.
Oh, it doesn't shock me. Shane has conversations with all his audio clips. Oh, man. Have a conversation with us, too. Warhorse Casino phone line, 888-638-4876. We are brought to you by The Beanery, the only coffee you should be drinking when you're listening to Coffee
That's
and Cream,
right.
the official coffee of Coffee and Cream. A lot of great locations in and around your area. I've been to all three. I've been to the newest one as well. And, just what I found out is the people there are why you keep going back, always with a smile on their face. And I did the pay it forward thing the other day.
Oh, yeah?
I felt weird doing it because it gets mixed reviews sometimes. Like I like to do it when I want to do it. It was the first time I've ever really done it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll pay for the group behind me. Like, that's cool. It was like $12. So I did that and just kind of drove off. Didn't want like any recognition or anything because that's not, but you do it by not receiving recognition. But even the worker was like, "Oh, wow, that's super nice of you." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. Yeah. All right, thanks." And the worker gave me a little bit of recognition.
I just have the
So go to the Beanery if you want to potentially get a pay it forward courtesy of me.
I just had this vision of you like paying for the people behind you and then like pulling off to the side to just like wait for them and see them get like creeping on them. Be like, no, me,
It's like that commercial where you go back in line and then you order hoping that they pay it forward for the next one.
Yeah. No, we didn't do that. Just drove on off. Yeah.
Nope, just drove right on.
That's
off,
good.
So.
You don't want to stay there and creep on people for their free coffee.
Yeah. This weekend too was the big UFC fight between Sterling and O'Malley. That was a shocker. After talking to Brian Edwards on Thursday, he made it sound like it's Aljamain Sterling all the way. And so he built a parlay for me. I placed that parlay. It did not hit because Sterling got TKO'd in the second round. How about that? Like round one was kind of like, whatever, going back and forth a little bit. And then Sterling got off balance and O'Malley just took his cheek.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I feel like there's a lot of UFC fights where it sort of feels like the action almost like catches you off guard, where they're kind of settling into it, and then all of a sudden there's a huge strike, and it's almost over before you know it, as guys kind of like try and feel themselves out. And it reminds me of, and this is, somebody who doesn't watch nearly as much hockey as you do, but it kind of reminds me of hockey sometimes. It's a lot of times you kind of see momentum buildings and things like that, but sometimes you get goals that almost like appear out of thin air. And that's sometimes how UFC strikes me. It's like, sometimes you get the fights build, and sometimes it just kind of this strike comes out of nowhere and ends the fight before you even really know what's going on. But no, so I didn't watch the undercards, but I saw
the main event.
I saw O'Malley with the TKO, and I mean, it was, it just kind of almost came out of nowhere.
It was a really good battle. So, just a lot of cool stuff this weekend. Question for you before we head into the break here, because yesterday I was watching baseball. I was watching the Orioles. Gunnar Henderson was.
You weren't watching my Red Sox kind of crawl their way back into that.
No, but I did watch the Cardinals not get swept by the Mets. Thank goodness. Gunnar Henderson. Do I say gunned out? No, because I thought about it too
gunned
long.
Down? Yeah, no.
So he hit a double, hit a triple, then he hit a home run. 8th inning, he hits one down the line. Do you stop at first for the cycle, or do you go to second? The score is 10-1.
I'm stopping at first.
Yeah, he ran to second.
I mean, boost that slugging percentage up a little bit.
If the score was 2-2,
I get to second.
I get to second.
10-1. I'm keeping my cycle.
I couldn't believe you should have seen the dugout's reaction to him standing on second base. You see Mateo and Mullins just like,
do you wonder
what are you doing?
You wonder if he just like had a brain hiccup and didn't even,
no way, right? A ball player knows.
He probably knows where he was at, but I wonder like if in the moment, like the instinct took over, like when you hit the ball and you're just like, oh, I got 2. And then by the time you're running, you're like, oh.
First base coach got to say, stay one, stay one, stay one, stay
you
one,
gotta help
stay
him
one.
out.
Yeah, you have to settle
Throw
him
up
down.
the stop sign early.
Right. Run through the bag.
They usually
double down the line. You run through first base.
You don't usually get a lot of stop signs at first base, but you got to help your guy out in that situation.
Yeah, I'm stopping at first. I'm taking that baseball.
Like you said,
2-2 in the trophy case.
2-2. I'm going for second.
10-1.
10-1. I'm taking my cycle.
Good on the Orioles, though. We'll get more into baseball talk and the sports cleanup. When we come back, let's get into some of this audio because there was something that I took note of that Matt Rhule said on Saturday. We'll get into the point he made on game prep timing and the importance behind that. We'll do that next. Sam McKewon also coming your way at 8 o'clock. Stick around. More CNC next.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, I think one of the keys has always been to me, Mitch, not starting opponent prep too early. Sometimes, they think so much about the game. By the time they get to the game, it sounds dumb, but it's almost like boring. You know what I mean? Like there has to be some excitement about it in terms of like the timings. You have to time it perfectly. So, we'll give them tomorrow off. Now, my version of off, which, we'll have a meeting in the morning, talk about academics for school and all that. So it's, academics, because we have school on Monday. Monday's an off day for them as well. So we'll give them 2 days back to back. So the first day of school and that Sunday. So they have a chance to kind of recover now. We've gone really hard. For some of them, it's the hardest thing they've probably ever done, and it's good. And so I'm pleased with them. So we'll take 2 days, and then we'll kind of, go 3 in a row, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll have a mock game Thursday night under the lights. I'll come in Friday, do some stuff, give them Saturday off. Then we'll practice on Sunday like a normal game week, give them Monday off, and start again on Tuesday. So in terms of opponent, scout, and prep, really talking completely about the opponent, we'll introduce some things on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then really that Friday will be truly a, hey, hang everything up. Hey, we're in game week.
All right, welcome back, Coffee and Cream. Robbie Lula in the seat for another 15 minutes. DB rejoins the show at 8 o'clock, coming over from Westside football practice this morning. Shane Chillerberg here as well, Andrew Rogers. We are live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and you will see some new signage this week.
Some changes.
New changes,
yeah.
Yep, and then all of a sudden, boom goes the dynamite. You can even celebrate the last event at HVC
today.
Schick and Nick.
I will be here.
To be here.
Yeah, I will be here as
One
well.
of the best live shows you can attend. One
of
the best.
I haven't got to do one of the live shows with him yet, so I'm very excited that I'll be here tonight.
I mean, they're just goofballs.
Oh yeah. Well, I go back with Schick and Nick to the original show. That's like one of the first local.
A little nostalgic.
It is. It's super nostalgic for me. And what I appreciate, though, about the podcast is that it's not just all nostalgia, right? They still talk about new stuff. They are still funny in real time. It's not just like, remember this funny thing we did 10 years ago? Yeah, and listen, they still play some of the old drops, and I love it. But it's still a new show, and they still are keeping it fresh, which I was really impressed by their ability to kind of just pick up where they left off after 10 years off the air. So I'm super excited to go tonight. I'm thrilled.
Yeah. So come to that event, the final event before the restaurant closes, and does those changes that we just teased there
before it reopens.
Bar and Grill, and yep, there it goes.
It's closing, but it is reopening.
That is true. That is true. That's a great word to use. Reopen.
Yes. Want to make sure we're clear on that. It's just going over, doing a little renovation, a little flip my house here.
Oh, you're a house flipper guy, huh?
Sometimes
you're like Jonathan and the other guy that do Property Brothers. Or
I find it fascinating sometimes to kind of watch those shows. I would never flip a house just because
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and I don't have the know-how to make it cheap. Because the only way not the only way, but you can make really good profit margins if you can do the work yourself, right? I am not that guy. That is not in my skill set.
You can still make,
you can make
30 grand.
You can make a nice
flip,
a nice chunk, but the guys that make really good margins are the ones that can do everything themselves.
Sure.
And I can barely keep my house together by myself. My wife does all the projects around the house. She's got like drill sets and all sorts of stuff. And I'm just like, honey, what do you need?
So, gosh, it's funny that you bring that up. When we were at the field yesterday, I had to turn on like the water by the toilets, and I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I just kind of started
turning knobs.
And sure enough, the water started to fill up. I'm like, see, I am a genius. That's about the extent of my let's just say my handyman skills.
So when I was in high school, a buddy of mine for some reason thought I knew about cars, and I don't at all. I don't know anything about a car. He's like,
what gives off that vibe?
I don't think anything about me.
Rocking a Hot Wheels backpack in high school, or
I would have, but no, I didn't. I have no idea. I don't know if he just had it in his head for some reason. So he's like, hey, my truck's making a funny noise. Can you come look at it? And I was like, yeah, I'll look at it. I don't know how much help I'm going to be. This is the funniest part, though. So there was a hose detached. And I was like, hey, it looks like we're coming from here. I was like, oh, yeah, this thing is, I don't think it's supposed to be flapping around in here. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're right. He pops it back on, fix the problem.
You're like, and that's the day I became a mechanic.
I nailed it. That is the last time I've ever done anything useful in a car. It's been about 17 years.
Nice. and now you just go over to Dingman's, right?
I do. Go over to our friends at Dingman's. I'm like, guys, I need an oil change.
How do we do this? Can you show me?
The only tool I need for my oil change is a credit card.
Yes. It swipes.
Yep.
And it's tap to pay too. No, okay, let's go back to the point that I wanted to make going into the break and the clip that you heard coming out of the break from Coach Rhule about game prep timing. I thought it was interesting because I get what he's saying. I get the point of, you get this built up excitement and you don't want to overdo it so that by the time you get there, you're kind of just tired of going over the same team over and over again. But at the same time, I'm like, with it being game one, week one, I don't know if there is like a too early point unless you're like studying film months in advance, right? So like if it's a week and a half or 2 weeks since it's the first game, I'm almost like, if I'm a player, let's get to it. Like, let me learn as much as I can about this team so that I'm fully prepared to really give it a go. Now, at the same time, what would actually deteriorate my confidence, though, is if we spent so much time on this and it didn't go well.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what Coach Rhule is probably saying more than the excitement piece of what, like, once you get to the game. Now, I'm not going to speak for the guy because he's a much smarter man than me when it comes to this stuff. But that's at least what I grasp from it is if I was a player, I wouldn't care if we started a week and a half early versus, the week
game up, game week,
the Friday to Friday, or, the Thursday to Thursday, whatever it is. Like that wouldn't bother me because at this point I'm probably camped out.
Yeah.
I'm tired of just practice. I just want to do something different.
Yeah. It's interesting because I definitely understand where Rhule's coming from. And I think you made a really good point too with, let's say you spend 3 weeks prepping for Minnesota and then you get beat by them. Where's your confidence level when you've only got a week to prep for every other team this year, except for whatever your bye week is, right? So that's something I do think you have to protect against a little bit because that can mess with a guy's head. The other thing is, and I'm going to go back here a little bit. There was this game against Texas in 2010 where the year before Nebraska had lost the Big 12 title game on the 1-second Colt McCoy deal, right? And so that whole offseason, I mean, we're talking, I think the football team put out a video in like May about the Texas game, which was not even the first game of the season. It was October, right? So you've got 5 months of buildup for this thing, plus the 6 months before where you're mad about losing on the 1-second to Colt McCoy. And by the time they got to the game, they fell right on their face. Like when you put too much emphasis on one thing, and that's where your mindset is. And once you get there, sometimes it's really hard. I don't think boredom's the right word, like Matt Rhule used. I'm not very often going to criticize his word choice because he's a really good speaker. I don't know if bored's the right word, but I think there is like an oversaturation of focus on one thing when you're doing that with a team. And it did not go well at all, right? This was a bad Texas team. I think they went 5-7 that year. Nebraska was actually pretty good, a game they definitely should have won. And they fell flat on their faces. And I think it goes back to the fact they'd been focused on this stupid game for so long. So I think that's another thing you're kind of trying to protect against, where you just want to say, hey, everyone in the state understands those first 2 games, you have to win one of them, right? Without a doubt, you have to win either Minnesota or Colorado. And I think Matt Rhule's smart to not put an overemphasis on, hey, we really got to get this W. You want to treat it like a normal game. You want to have all the prep in the world. Now, I'm sure the coaches have been watching film for a long time, right? But I think it's smart to keep your prep the same for every single game where it's like, okay, and they do it on the bye weeks too, right? First week, we focus on us. Next week, we focus on the opponent. Usually don't spend 2 weeks on the opponent, right? I think it's for the same reasons where you don't get an oversaturation of focus and it can kind of burn you out. I don't think it's boredom. I think it's more of a burnout situation on, you get burned out with focusing on the one thing. By the time they actually start Minnesota prep, these guys, because they've been in camp and they should be chomping at the bit to be able to get ready and prep for Minnesota.
Now, what I will give Coach Rhule credit for is this, though. He thinks about things most people don't normally think about. Like, and a lot of coaches may not think about.
Yeah.
By just bringing this up, sometimes if you prep too early, you could lose excitement once the game actually
You lose your
arrives.
edge a little bit.
Who's actually thinking that? Like, he thinks about everything,
Well,
and he has a move for everything. So that's just credit to him and knowing every ounce of football from a mental standpoint to a physical standpoint. He just knows it all. So, as much as we sit here and we're like, we may criticize a word or two, it's like
his general point is very
kudos
well taken.
to you for just thinking about this, because I didn't.
No, honestly, I'm not sure it's something I had thought about until he said it, and I was like, oh, that's a really good point. And that's when the Texas thing popped in my mind. I was like, oh, it's kind of the same dynamic. He really does.
Sparks a lot of thought, and we've heard it from his players too. I think it was it Singleton or Newsome? One of the two was talking about how he just walks by the film room sometimes and goes, that's why I respect my coaches, because they're doing something when we're not.
Yeah.
Sam McKewon up next.
The show will be back in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. And that kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
All right, welcome back. Top of the hour here on Coffee and Cream. Happy to be joined by Damon Benning now. DB, back in the seat.
What up?
Man, you've been up since what time? 4:30?
4:10.
4:10? There it is. He had practice.
Yeah, I can't see. The heck with the whole reading thing.
It probably was pretty nice out there, though.
No.
No? Temperature-wise?
No, it is sticky.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I feel bad, right? Because not all schools are able to just go in the morning and get it out of the way. So I know some schools you don't want to have a helmets only. Some will do a helmets only. Some will move their practice to nighttime. But it's tough, right? But you got to take care of the kids' health just because. But it's going to be like this the next 3 days. So we wanted to make sure that we got a regulars groups worth of work in. So we're cool.
Sam McKewon joining us now on the show as he does every Monday at 8 o'clock. Sam, good morning.
Good morning. You know what I was thinking about? It's too bad the state of Nebraska does not have like a Dakota Dome the way that South Dakota or North Dakota does, because there might be a situation later this week where some teams just have to wait until some other time to play a game because it's too hot, and there's no dome. You can just go play 5 games in one day.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? And it's happening across sports. Coach Samanji, his daughter played at Iowa yesterday, soccer in Iowa City, and it was originally supposed to be a 1 o'clock game. They waited till 7:30. So he didn't roll in this morning from Iowa City until 2:15, but it even affects the college game to it, because he said yesterday in Iowa City it was 109 on the heat index in the middle of the day.
Yeah,
holy cow,
ridiculous.
So they discretion was the better part of valor. Is that the term? And so they waited to play that game until nighttime.
Well, it's funny because they're building like all of these different venues for basketball. Like there's another one being built over in Papillion right now. I'm shocked that there isn't an area for, say, soccer or football yet.
Yeah, I guess, Sam, I was telling AR this morning, I kind of just feel bad for the schools that aren't able to have AM practices, right? Yeah. We could hit, they kind of told us on Thursday, so we can kind of hit pause and say, okay, listen, we're going to go in the morning, but it's not easy on anybody, right? Because teachers got to be in the buildings at 7:45. It's if you're a school where a lot of your kids come via the bus or your parents aren't getting you there, that's tough.
No question. It's hard to do it the first week too, because certainly there are practices where you can go do things in a gym or you can do things with helmets and shorts, but you can't. That first week you want to try to get some physical component in, because you don't want to. You're going to play a game, and it's a whole different experience, right? Like it's a different feeling than even practice. So I hope the games are all be able to play on time. It won't surprise me if something gets moved from Thursday to Friday, because it's going to be like 92 on Friday, which is hot, but it's not 105. And so I guess we'll find out what happens.
Sam, were you surprised that the style of play or whatever it was that you were expecting from Friday night when you talk prep in Bellevue West? We'll have to train our eye from an expectation level on a Thursday night in Minneapolis based on what we think we'll see. How quickly did you have to retrain your eye on Friday based on what you thought you'd see?
Oh, that's a good question. Some of that's dependent on, because there are variables from year to year in high school. So I think Prep's second game against you guys will give a better glimpse as to how good of a team that is. But they did some things that I thought were, I don't know what the right word is. That was probably a little bit more competitive game than I thought it would be.
I was pleasantly surprised by the way Prep tackled out in space.
Oh, yeah.
I felt like that secondary did a good job of tackling.
That's right. So I think that was notable. And Bell West, I think, played okay on defense. So sometimes you don't learn a lot about teams until week 3 or 4 because, again, there are variables that switch over. I would have said that, Prep had a really, really good team last year with the way it could run the ball and the players it had on the team. But, so we'll see. But, yeah, I think Bellevue West has got, some work to do. But they're a great team. There's 3 or 4 teams in the state that I think are, obviously state title contenders. You guys are one of them.
See, I still think people think I'm crazy, but I definitely don't think they will after last week. And I get it. It's week 0, but there will be a lot of good. I think it's hard to be great. I think there will be a handful of teams that will be very, very good. I really do. I don't think it's a 2-horse race.
I understand that. We'll see with Millard North, who's got them ranked 4th. That's where I went to high school for people who don't know. And I'm excited to see what they can do. I think this could be, Coach Petito's best team in some time. And certainly they had flashes last year. So, when they're right, when that team's going the way that they want it to go, they're very hard to stop because that offense is very effective if they've got all the pieces. And then defensively, I think they're going to be pretty good. So, we'll see. I think it's going to be a good year. I think it's going to be a very good year in Class A, way more competitive than last year. No offense to last year, but there were only about 3 or 4 teams last year, really only 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so this year, I think it'll be more competitive. I think in Class B, it could be, the team that won the state title may not win again. But I think it's going to be kind of top heavy. But we'll see.
I'm within Class B. And pressure isn't the right word because pressure is a privilege. But obviously, with 3 guys on one team forming your Super 6, has that ever happened?
I don't think so.
And then
I don't think so.
Should that change the expectation? Because it doesn't for us, right? Just because we're experienced with the Metro. But what do you think that does with the fan base? How difficult a process was it? Because a lot of times you don't often kind of explain who could have been on but wasn't. But that was part of the online edition too. I thought that was interesting. Yeah. That let me know that it was tough.
It was very difficult. I think there's probably an argument to be made that going forward we can expand it. And the reason I say that is because there really were. You go back 6-7 years. I don't know exactly what was going on in high school football, maybe 8-9 years ago, but there were a couple of years there where I think we only had 4 Power 5 recruits, and I think Nebraska was slow playing some guys, and there were some guys that got away to North Dakota State who were frankly better than they were good enough to play in D1. But for whatever reason, they didn't get any offers better than North Dakota State. So, but now we're up to 12, 13. It could be 14 by the end of the year. You never really know. Let's say Sam Thomas. I'm not trying to say Sam Thomas is getting a decommit from Northern Iowa, but let's say he has a great year. Somebody could pick him up. You just never know. So I think there's enough. It's certainly a tough determination. There were a couple of guys that were right there. Obviously, Donovan Jones was right there to consider. Ashton Murphy is there, sure, from Elkhorn South. He's another one that was strongly considered. And then probably the prep tight end. Now, his numbers last year weren't off the charts, but I think he's going to end up being a pretty good football player at the collegiate level. So he was up there. It wasn't an easy choice. But I think we got the right ones. And, at the end of the day, there's some pressure on Bell West because they obviously have a really high-profile team and they have a great coach and the expectation levels are high. I think Danny played fine. I think he played well. He's got a lot on his shoulders, just like Zane Flores did last year. But I think it's even a little different for Danny because he's going to Nebraska and he plays for Bellevue West, and Bellevue West has been good for 15 years. So Gretna just got good. Bellevue West has been good for a long time, so the standard of expectation is higher for him. So he's got a spotlight on him, but I think he can handle it.
Yeah, I thought DK struggled a little bit with his touch, with the wind. I think the wind played a factor on some of those balls, but he ran a lot too, which is that something that you're typical of seeing from him in that offense?
I think Coach Huffman knows, Sam. If they want to be where they want to be when it's at the end of the day, good defenses, he knows he needs that running quarterback element.
Right. You could ask him, and I think he would say, listen, if that's what they're going to give us, that's what we're going to do. I'm sure there's teams that will present a different defensive puzzle, and they'll solve it a different way. But he did. There were a lot of designed runs or maybe check two runs. I thought Danny did that okay. In previous years, they had used Tegan Johnson for that. If they have an option like that, I think that would also be something they can explore. I don't know that they have an LJ Richardson. So, and they've got good running backs. Don't get me wrong, but that was a little surprising to see. Get ready to see it a lot with Nebraska. I think Jeff Sims is going to do his share of that. I think when you look maybe at some of these NFL offenses with Jalen Hurts, not Lamar Jackson, he's more talented than Hurts, but
Josh Allen, who's talented, but they use him kind of as like a primary threat. Right. It's odd.
Yeah. So if you look at those offenses, absolutely. I put Lamar Jackson in a different category. He needs to stay healthy, but I think he's more talented than Jalen Hurts is. Offenses like Hurts or what they're going to do with the Colts and Anthony Richardson, I think those are things that they can do with Jeff Sims. Obviously the risk is injury, but they'll try to protect him where they can. And you look at Jalen Hurts and say, well, he stayed healthy for 14 of 16 games. So why can't Jeff Sims stay healthy for 11 and 12 or something like that? And so I think that might be something that you see from Nebraska.
You're well on record too, right? You've talked about the propensity to turn the football over, and you've used it in relation to Nebraska and it being quarterbacks so quarterback centric in the run game. Do you think that gets minimized this year if you have packages for guys like Purdy and Harburg and Sims, where they're actually practicing it a fair amount in practice, ball security?
Maybe that's possible. Generally speaking, you can practice the jet sweep over and over too, and the receivers are going to fumble it more often than the running backs do. Running backs just have a tendency to protect the ball better, and they work on it more, and so you're going to see some fumbles, you're going to see some mistakes, but you never know. I mean, they're going to obviously want to run the football downhill. There's some things that they can probably do to improve that, and kind of play action pass off that. I was watching because I want to go back and look at Gabe Irvin's best runs of his career, and there aren't a ton of them.
No,
but I went back and watched a few, and one that stood out. I mean, he had a couple good runs against Illinois. He had a couple against Oklahoma. So I watched both of those games again. And you want to talk about two frustrating games to watch if you're a Nebraska fan. There's a lot of things Nebraska does right in both those games, but my goodness, the inefficiency when it really counts, the turnovers that come at the wrong time. Nebraska had, Matt Lubick and whomever, Scott Frost, they had some pretty good plays that year. They designed some good stuff, but they could not sustain drives. And those are probably the things to chew on as we watch Nebraska this year. Can they get to a point where, they can score 24 to 27 points? Because that's probably the difference between a couple of wins and a couple of losses. And then the special teams part, as I was watching that Oklahoma game, I'm like, Nebraska's special teams is suck. And it's like, my God, they can't make kicks. They get an extra point block. I'm like, this sucks. And it's frustrating, I think, to watch again, because you're like, Nebraska was probably the better team in that Oklahoma game. And they were doing good things. And then, they had 5 penalties on one drive. Anyway, so there's just things that you kind of watch and process, and I think Nebraska's got to get better on special teams, better at not committing penalties. I don't know that they're going to be better at kicker. It's hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll find out. We don't know. One thing about special teams that's absolutely true is Ed Foley can do everything he can possibly do to make that special teams as good as possible, and he is nevertheless at the mercy of the kicker. He cannot do anything for that kicker other than hope the guy makes the kick. At the end of the day, you can try drills, you can try those things, but Brett Maher was great for the Cowboys during the regular season, had one of the greatest regular seasons of all time, and then he missed them in the playoffs. There's just nothing you can do. So Nebraska is at the mercy of Bleak Road and Alvano just being as good as they can be, and you just don't know until they make or miss the kick.
Sam, did it surprise you that Coach Rhule said right before he left the podium that Alvano is the starter as of Saturday?
It doesn't surprise me, but, again, they're going to go through a Thursday walkthrough that's like a simulated game, and I think it'll be more than a walkthrough, but it'll be sort of a simulated practice of a game where you're going to get into, like, how to get on the field and how to get off the field for certain things. I think it'll probably come down to that. I would say it doesn't surprise me a ton, because if the first guy were the guy, they wouldn't even be having a competition, because you don't even want to invite that into a kicker's mind.
And he doesn't, and he hates playing freshman kickers too. Like, that's not Coach Rhule's jam.
Right. So, like, you don't even embark on this journey unless you think it has to happen. Because, again, you do not want a situation where a kicker is looking over his shoulder. It's a confidence. It's like a golfer who would be like, well, I'm going to go out here and hit this shot, but if I don't hit it right, this guy over here is going to come and hit the rest of the shot. So, like, it's not easy. And so I would guess that Alvano will win it, but you just never know. Like, you got to go out there and make the kick.
Yeah, no question.
Now, I was paying attention to word choice a lot too, Sam, because that's kind of what we're getting into now. Like, we've been hearing a lot from these coaches for a long time now. So I'm just trying to, like, really not like nitpick, but like really just pay attention to the words that they use weeks, before start of 8:31. And one of the words you mentioned, the starting running backs and Gabe Ervin, was Coach Rhule said clearly the choice. Like, did that come across to you as something like, oh yeah, he's clearly the choice in my mind too? Because at least what I thought maybe a week or two ago, Anthony Grant was giving that starting job a run for its money. You can't fumble the football. You can't
put the ball on the carpet.
And I get that.
He was still mad.
Right. And I get that.
When he was addressing the practice, right? Because he said, what did he say, Sam? He goes, we had a couple balls on the ground from one guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was still pissed.
But clearly, using the term clearly for Gabe Ervin.
That's why, though. That's why. Because that's exactly why. It's balls on the carpet.
I'll just put it this way. We don't get to watch practice, and he does. And he's the head coach, and EJ Barthel is the running backs coach. And if that's how they want to roll it, then we'll see how it goes. Damon knows a lot more about this than I do. What I'll say is that, he is a great kid, and I think we'll just have to see how it goes. I haven't seen it in the game, but again, he was a true freshman when he was healthy last time, and he wasn't fully healthy last year. And there were issues going on with Nebraska's offense when he was healthy back as a true freshman. Certainly, when he gets ahead of steam and he gets downhill on a guy, he can certainly break a lot of tackles, and those things are good. Ramir Johnson, I totally appreciate what they're trying to do there. I think Ramir is a very tough player, and so I think they're not going to put him in a position where he separates a shoulder or he gets a 2-game concussion or things like that, because they want to see him have a professional opportunity, and he might be able to have one. So I think they're going to use Ramir in some other ways. Anthony Grant's a very talented runner. Obviously, he's fumbled. I don't recall him fumbling a ton last year, but I do know that A.J. Allen fumbled a lot in spring camp, and they were not happy with that, and A.J. Allen's gone. So,
And it's funny. That's funny you bring him up, Sam. Not to interrupt, but AJ Allen was the best natural runner of the bunch, and I would actually, if I had a preference in my running style, I would probably take Grant over Irvin as a natural runner. But that shows me, though, they just aren't going to be patient with putting the ball on the carpet. And it's kind of interesting because I played with two guys that, even though they played young, both as freshmen, would have played more early, but they couldn't take care of the ball either. And that was Amon and D'Angelo.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But the talent, it's just like, well, we know there's something in there. We'll coach that out of them. And ultimately it paid off. But I mean, it's not uncommon sometimes for young guys in ball security.
Yeah, I think a lot has been thrown at Anthony Grant, and so I think he's having to kind of adjust on the fly a little bit. There's been a lot of changes, I think, in just his process over the last 6 months. But simultaneously, I also trust Brian Applewhite, and I trust. As far as it goes, Mark Whipple is a brilliant man, and so if those guys thought, well, hey, Anthony Grant gives us the best chance until the last game of the season, when they finally got fed up with him trying to run around everybody and they brought Rainier in, that tells me something too. So if Gabe Irvin is ready to roll and he's fully healthy and he's picking up his feet and not getting,
they're gonna need everybody. I think
they are. Here's my feeling, and you tell me if I'm wrong. Early in football games, so Gabe Irvin you get that guy in the fourth quarter when when the defenders are catching a little bit. I like what he brings to the table.
Mm-hmm.
In the first quarter of a football game, I mean, it's like I don't even know, 4 F-350s running at you, trucks just running at you 100 miles an hour because there's so much juice and energy out of that defense. You got to make somebody miss.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because you're not going to easily just run people over at the 13:28 mark of the first quarter. So he's got to be able to make somebody miss. And that it's just so hard to be a good running back. It's just hard to make people miss now, especially now. And so I'll be curious to see whether he can take a 2-yard play and make it a 9-yard play. And Anthony Grant can do that. He's pretty good at that. And so I'll be curious to see if Irvin is able to elude tacklers early in games, because the first time that a safety comes up and hits a guy, he's going to be at 100. The power bar is going to be at 100%. It's going to be hard to run him over. So you've got to try to find a way to make guys miss early, and I'll be curious to see how Irvin does that.
Sam, when you're talking about the talk, and we didn't get into it last week like I wanted to, but with the single-digit jerseys and who's got them and who doesn't, and do you make much of the type of players that are getting the single-digit jerseys, or because it seems to be kind of a catalyst that comes from the players, do you just take it for what it is?
It's an interesting tradition. I'm curious to see how it goes. I don't know. I'll be curious to see how many of these things carry on for years to come.
Yeah.
But it seems like the players are into it, and they seem to be into giving them to defensive players. I don't know.
Well, at one point, I almost thought it was the new black shirt. At one point.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Maybe not. It's interesting, and we'll see how it goes. I do think Nebraska's defensive line could be better than we thought based on the development that they appear to have made in the last 6 months.
Sam McKewon, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much. We'll talk again next week.
Thanks, Sam.
Take care.
More CNC after the break.
We will be back in 5 minutes. We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes.
Well, I remember he was going around at 60. And then I remember the day coach was like, hey, I think he can help us.
We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Well, I remember he was running around at safety. And then I remember the day coach Rhule was like, hey, I think he can help us, somewhere else. Let's try. Let's see what he can do, because I like his traits. I like what he's about. He's an OU guy. And then we did it. And that it started with Coach Rhule, again, seeing what we didn't see at first. We saw the athleticism and all this kind of stuff. And then we get into the motions, but then it's, coach sitting back and watching everybody in the roster and saying, hey, how about this? Let's do this here. And then we moved him, and Coach Rob got with him, met with him extra, caught him up on the stuff, and taught him what he needed to be taught, and let him loose. And sure enough, he's balling. So it's cool, very cool.
Welcome back, Coffee and Cream on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Reno time. DB, Andrew Rogers, happy to have you with us. The Warhorse Casino phone line, 888-638-4876. We'll do the sports cleanup later on in the show as well. Warhorse partnering up with us now for the foreseeable future. We appreciate all of our great sponsors and listeners out there. I told people too already, DB. I mean, how about winning 2 awards on Saturday? I mean, kudos to our listeners for, giving us a vote.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I appreciate what we've been able to do in a short amount of time. And, man, keep downloading podcasts.
I feel like,
you guys.
We're kind of like the new Nebraska football,
We
right?
appreciate
What we've been able to do in a limited amount of time.
I hope they get some dubs.
Maybe 2 off the start.
I still feel like we're kind of I think we're kind of in our feels a little bit about this team now. And I know you said it last week. Maybe it's just because it's closer to the season and you tend to get a little more nervous. But, man, I am not – the level of optimism is starting to wane. Football can't get here soon enough.
Now, Sam said something in his interview on the back end there about the defensive line. And, I actually got asked about that on Saturday. Somebody asked me, they're like, how'd you know about the D line so early? Because he was like, you weren't on them. Like other people said they didn't like them. And now all of a sudden we're hearing the coaching staff talk a lot about them. He goes, do you have a DB relationship with Rhule too? And I said, honestly, no, I'm not as cool as DB. But I said, I kind of cheated. And he's like, cheated? And I said, yeah, credit goes to Phil Steele. And he goes, the magazine guy? And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, how so? And I said, well, if you look at his projected starting lineup, okay, you see the 3 names that I ended up bringing up. And I kind of based my knowledge off that. And the reason I did that is because when Phil was talking to us, this was back in, was it July? Is that when he launched? He sent out his magazine.
And we got him relatively early on his radio tour, too,
right?
So it hadn't quite settled.
He said he talked to 120 out of the 125 coaches in college football. And one of them was Matt Rhule. And just by using deductive reasoning, that's why I said, okay, these 3 guys are probably going to be it because Rhule doesn't sugarcoat. And he also gives away a lot of details.
And I remember, too, because you even called him by name when you said Blaise Gunnerson as one. And I was like, I don't know, man. It's awful early. Like, I don't know about that.
And that's how I got my assessment, though, was there. And I was just trying to connect the dots of how I got there. And it was because of what Phil put in the projection. Because
he's so much bigger now. So, and here's the funny thing, like, again, this isn't to defend or to not, but before Coach Chinander was let go, the last quarter of the season 2 years ago is over Thanksgiving break. And he's like, DB, I think we've unlocked something with Blaise Gunnerson, right? Like I don't know if the scar tissue's finally broken up. He's finally got confidence, but like he said, and I quote, I think we've got one here. Then last year, roll around, he starts to play a little more, and Coach Joseph and Coach Bush were like, man, we really like Blaise. Like plays a position where we have a little bit of depth, but Coach Joseph like DB, man, the kid can go. He can play. Coach Bush liked him a ton, and then you get to this year, and this staff likes him a ton, but they moved him, right? Like, he's playing on that first level now, and he's a long, angular guy. They did a good job of, like, saying what he could carry before he would have to actually slow down his twitchiness. But I think right now, they probably feel like they could play 6.
Yeah, 6 deep.
So
what were people thinking a week ago?
Well, probably 2 weeks ago. You probably think you're hoping
2 weeks
to get
ago,
to 4,
right?
5 maybe. I think they think that they could play 6.
And then he goes out and says Cam Lenhart's going to be a starter.
Yeah.
freshmen.
Could be
2 guys that we were on back in December when we gave our Super 6 rankings. No, we basically
and Prince has
slotted
been
that in.
dinged, and I liked both of them.
Same.
And I actually
Umamielen is, I think, better off the edge.
More upside.
Mhm.
Than
Leonard,
Cam. They're different. Cam's stronger.
He's got Khalil Mack size.
Yeah, he's a thicker kid. Princewell is a little longer, a little leaner,
but he's fast.
Kind of he's a little twitchier than Cam. But
he's got good movement off the line, and good with his hands to get around.
And we're kind of forgetting
the
about
lineman.
a guy just because he has a new NIL deal. But Nash Upmacher is made some tremendous strides. And I always said for him, the key is can he play at 45s? Right? We know he's good going forward. Can he play at 45s? And he's leaner. I think they've trained him in such a way where they understand how to play to his strengths. But I truly think they can play 6, which I'm not sure many people saw coming at this juncture. That doesn't mean they'll play well, but from a level of comfort standpoint, listen, if I told you, hey, Friday, I feel like I can play 4 guys, at OLB or whatever, like you feel good because the more that you can play, the better off.
What's a number you want to be at? Like, what's a good number?
So I think you want to be able to play 5 D line.
Okay.
And that was playing an even front because you need one. Because the difference between even, it's kind of a misnomer, right? In an even front, I think you need 3 D linemen. In an odd front, you really need 2. Because one of your edge guys is kind of a hybrid 4-3 end. So you need more true defensive linemen, I think, in a 3-4, even though the number is 1 less. But having said all that, I that's a good rotation. Like if I could play 2 units, that would be fantastic.
It's like playing hockey defenseman, right?
Well,
you just cycle them.
Just from the other night, do you see what Prep did? I mean, they pull a D-line unit out at a time.
Right.
And it's put in another D-line unit.
And it's hard not to keep your eyes on, their safety, Zach McClay. Like, he's the guy on that defense.
He's a dude.
Yeah, he's a player.
I have to tell you about our scouting report this morning. Like, guys get circles. Like, yeah, he's nice.
Yeah, I saw him on 3rd down just hunt, and I mean hunt Danny Kalen coming off the edge.
So the weird thing, again, you have to be careful because it's the first game, and we may come out and look and get whipped on the perimeter because Prep's got a game under their belt. But I thought Bellevue West, when Bellevue West is really, really good, their perimeter run blocking is sensational. Now I know they've had some staff turnover, and Coach Pavlik and some of these guys that used to teach their perimeter run blocking is gone. But man, used to be those DBs or those receivers used to get out there and just do work in the perimeter run game. And I felt like Prep for a young bunch held their own. Now McClay's not young. I mean, he's a senior,
right?
But yeah, we definitely.
You took notes, right?
Oh, did I show it to you?
No.
Yeah, because we couldn't get film, so. Oh yeah, we got notes. I did it by down and distance, and I just had to worry about defense. My notebook's in my car.
Fortunately, right? You only have to worry about one piece.
That's it. That's it.
That engine.
That's it.
Let's go to the phone line, Shane. Talk to Cody. Cody on line 1 on the Warhorse Casino phone line. Cody, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are we doing today?
Yeah, we are just dandy.
Good. How much of a scorcher was it for you, Cody?
Oh, it's pretty brutal out.
How was Friday?
I was at the Gretna scrimmage Friday and then went and watched that North Platte game. Derek Jones put everyone on notice.
Yeah, you can tote it for Pap yourself.
200 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Is that good?
Yeah. Okay, I was going to talk a little bit of here with the Husker D line. Who's going to back up Nash at D tackle?
Well, I think he'll back up Ty. So I think those two.
So we have Ty, Nash, Blaze, Cam,
Brentswell,
Ruquan,
and Buckley.
The thing I was hearing was Mason Goldman got moved to D end and it's turning some heads.
Yeah, I think he's a defensive guy all the way.
Cody, appreciate the call, man. We'll get back into it when we come back.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, he just taking great care of the ball. You know, I think when the Big Ten Network came, they talked about him, you know, being the highest in college football in terms of returning turnovers. I wouldn't have ever suspected that because just being around him. So I went back and watched them. You know, there was a lot of times you would say they were probably not his fault. You know, he was getting hit, you know, or someone got hit and dropped the ball. I think Jeff's taking great care of the ball. It's a fine line, right? Like, you know, we talk about the toxic battle here. It's an old Brian Billick stat. You know, we want to win the turnover battle, but also win the explosive play battle. So we can go out there and go into a shell and, you know, not turn the ball over ever, but, you know, go 3 and out. It's the same thing, right? So we want to be explosive, and I think Jeff is learning that line of when to be explosive, when not, when to take a chance and when not to. So we don't want to play scared. That's the biggest thing for this group is they can't play scared. So, but I think he's done a really nice job, Steve. I think he's playing really good football, and there's still a lot to learn. I know we're playing on 8/31, but there's a lot of games after that. And so we're just trying to get better and better and better and better and better every day. So I think we'll see him play really good football this year.
I think we should get back into our previous point that Cody brought up before the break, because we kind of rushed to beat our time.
Yep.
But we were talking about the defensive line and who would kind of be the order. So it seems like Ty is a unanimous one, right?
T-Rob,
kind of across the board.
T-Rob.
And then you said you put Nash behind T-Rob.
He can play the nose, and he can play some DT as well.
Mm-hmm. And then are those the two up front?
Yeah, I think that's.
Is that where you start with these guys and then you kind of fill in the blanks after? Would you put the freshmen in tier 3 just because they're freshmen?
Well, like Princewell and Cam, I think are in tier 2.
Okay,
right, because they're up next. So you'll go Blaze, Nash and Ty. If Ty is not playing the nose, then he can play at the tackle spot. And I think they can play any combination of. The only one that's probably the open side guy is Blaze, but you could also, it wouldn't hurt them to be able to play Nash and Cam or Nash and Ty at the same time. They could easily do that. So they'll have some flexibility. I think 6 is still the number.
And then he brought up right before we went to break Mason Goldman's name.
Yeah, and I said this for a long time, and no disrespect to his offensive line play. He's more of a headache defensively.
Did he play both sides?
Oh yeah. And I'd say, for as nice a.
Because a Gretna guy, Class A, would play both sides.
Yeah,
that's pretty rare.
They had a couple guys that did in platoon, some two-way guys, and so he'd keep you up at night. Remember, he's the guy I told you.
I remember
we would watch him play, and I would say
he gives me nightmares.
Yeah, if you don't want, there were 2 guys. It was Laquana at Millard South, and it was Goldman at Gretna. And I was like, if you don't want to be on the receiving end of this, you have to match these guys' intensity. Yeah, Mason, we just watched him drive guy after guy after guy into the ground. And it was just like, he strikes me as more of a natural D lineman than he does an O lineman, but he's got a great frame, long arms, he's tall. He could pack on a little bit of pounds and still be explosive. Because it's funny, because I think the natural inclination for fans is just like, they'll look at the frame like, just put 20 pounds on him, or just put 30 pounds on him and make him. It's not that easy. They're genetics are genetics, and muscle frames are muscle frames. But he's definitely a guy that you could see a ton of potential just in terms of what his frame is able to carry. A lot of guys aren't built like that. They kind of are what they are, and you either trim them up a little or you can make some adjustments that way. Like Tyson Terry is a guy whose body's not going to give you a lot of wiggle room in terms of weight, but he can redistribute, right? Because he's already a naturally
and he's a wrestler,
big, strong, thick kid. Some frames are different, right? I mean, people always talked about, I would have liked to seen Malachi maybe play some more D end or like an edge guy. And it's like, you just put 20, 25 pounds on him. Well, his metabolism has to be able to
respond to that, right?
Respond to that too, right? It's like not that easy. Sometimes those frames just don't allow you.
I went through college and I was 160.
Yeah, some people are just like that, right? And
people would always envy, you just eat whatever and it just goes in one end out the other. And
you have to be,
I can't hold it.
You have to be very strategic about weight gain.
I took protein, a double shot of protein a day after a workout. I worked out 5 days a week for 3 months in college. Guess how much weight I gained?
7, 8 pounds.
4 pounds.
Yeah, I didn't seem like much.
4 pounds.
It's
Like
some guys are
just my body.
Some guys are just like that. I sent Michigan Lance some pictures of Caleb, and he's 7 pounds heavier than a year ago. And Lance asked if he was on. He's like, "What do you got him at on Balco?"
Are you giving him $20 for every pick this year?
But he had one the other night. Langston. I gotta show you the picture. But
Oh,
anyway,
I saw videos. I saw videos.
And it's only 7 pounds, right? So sometimes just depending on your frame, it can look a lot different. Like, I mean, I look at Blaze now and I'm like, I did not see open side. I did not see playing a 5 technique in his future, right? But that's why those guys make the big bucks. Because you heard Coach White talking about Bullock,
right? When he couldn't speak any higher of John.
Well,
Bullock.
that was a vision that Coach Rhule saw.
We started at safety.
You know what's funny? I go back to
transition.
I go back to this using multiple guys and using your roster and getting 8 or 9 or 10 plays from different roster spots. Remember the thing that I was first blown away by that Sunday that he had all those recruits in and he had a comp for them.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, was.
I remember the conversation.
I was like, that was just eerie. You're like, oh, that guy, he reminds me of this guy. We
you
can
guys,
do this.
It wasn't like you guys were doing anything. Everyone was just hanging out, right? And he just came over to you and started pointing guys out.
He'd only been there 2 weeks, which had let me know that he was doing his homework ahead of time. But his experience is so vast, he has a comp. He already has a mental comp for a guy. And when you're a development person, you have to have had some experience with a developmental project. So that way, once you know a guy reaches a certain kind of numbers,
he reminds me of
this guy. Because because he had those numbers and I could make him do this. So that's just what he does. And you got
it's funny you say that because Robbie and I got into one thing he said on Saturday to open the show right around like the 7:45 mark. I don't know if you were in the car at the time and driving and heard it, but we were talking about game prep timing. Like he brought that up on Saturday on how like there's a right time to do something. And like there was some word choice there that, we were kind of critical on by, excitement and boredom and things like that. But at the end of the day, what I settled on was who thinks of that? And that's him. He thinks of every little detail for this football team.
So full disclosure, I think that's just good leadership. I really do. I think other good coaches would do that. Coach Samanji, we didn't start prep game planning until Saturday.
But like how it affects the player, right?
Yeah, and it's like because you just it's a ramp up process. And because here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to be 3 weeks out from a game and start game planning where you don't get the totality of what it is that you're trying to install. Right. So, for example, we didn't put in goal line. We didn't put in goal line defense until Saturday. Why didn't we put it in earlier in camp? Well, it wasn't part of our of the introduction of our whole philosophy. It's a very finite thing for some of the personnel groupings that we may see in week 1. There was no sense in installing it 2 weeks ago, right? Because that's taking away from, let's say, a turnover circuit or team defensive individual or like fundamental work that goes along with our overarching philosophy of the defense. That's a very finite thing,
which really makes sense in high school.
Right. Well, even in college, I mean, how many times how far out would you rep red zone defense versus 20 personnel before it would get repetitive?
It feels like it gets repetitive pretty quick.
So that's what he means when he says boredom, right? Like, hey, listen, Californiakis.
Yeah, whatever his name is, right? Caliakmanis.
Right, if those red zone quarterback runs, how many times do you want to rep that in the red zone, and how far?
And I totally get that. So
I think that's kind of what he's talking about in terms of like finite game plan versus generally speaking, when we're in red zone defense, hey, listen, DBs, if they're inside the 10 and your heels are on the goal line, don't give ground. That's not necessarily specific to game planning for Minnesota. It would just be how you would play your defense week in, week out in red zone. So I think those are the kinds of finite things that he's
and that
talking
makes a
about
little
for
more sense
gameplay.
when you break it down, because when I first heard it, I'm like, well, if I'm a player, I'm excited for the first game regardless. You could start 2 weeks ahead, and I'm like, let's go. Let's talk Minnesota, because I'm tired of camping, right? I'm tired of just practice. So let's get into the actual game prep.
So,
but it can make sense from the other.
We have to get lined up to a spread formation, right? A 2-by a 1 receiver look. We didn't get specific about prep until this week, right? 7 passes or 7 runs out of it, no passes. I would never do that when we're installing, getting lined up against spread, because you're teaching balance.
Right.
Now we'll get specific in terms of tendencies.
All right, we'll take a short break. When we come back, let's get into the single-digit numbers. I know DB's been wanting to. We'll do that next.
The show will be back in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes.
I think we got a lot of guys. We play a lot of reps. Like everybody plays almost a week of reps. Like now, Thursday is the game, but I think we got a lot of guys.
Will be back in 2 minutes.
We play a lot of reps. Like for me, it's not that hard. It was just, I would say Omar is always gonna. A lot of the guys on defense are excited about the things that are going on the defense. Yeah, I feel like we are.
The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I think we got a lot of guys. We play a lot of reps. Like everybody plays almost as equals reps. Like now it's getting a little shorter because it's getting closer to the game. But I think like everybody, like we got a lot of good guys, and a lot of even the guys younger who didn't play a lot last year, like they stepping up. They all learning, and pretty much I want to say like majority of the DB group got the whole defense down right now at the back end. A lot of people could play other positions as well. So I think it won't be just 4-man group. It could be rotations going on as well because we got other good players as well.
Very interesting. I'm shocked he hasn't played more Omar Brown clips today.
Omar's coming.
He's played only played a few. He did a little drop thing. I think he practiced it before he got here today because he just had Omar clips on standby and was asking himself questions and having Omar answer them. That is Shane.
It was pretty fantastic to be able to talk to my man Omar today.
Omar was just happy that Irvin got the same way that he got him too. Why does that happen?
Every time.
So he, that clip was circulating on one of Gabe Irvin's runs, and Gifford was on the receiving end, and it was the exact same play and the exact same run fit that Omar Brown had in the spring game when he scored from like the 6 or 7 yard line. And I was like, oh, that looks familiar. Somebody else is going to be on somebody's poster in the defensive backs room. But
Shane's just kissing his poster. I don't sleep of Omar Brown.
I don't read too much into that. Gifford will give a lot more than he gets.
Ain't nothing new.
No, ain't nothing new. They're so interchangeable back there.
Thank you.
So I mean, I think they figure out that they can play 4 corners, and then the other 3 safeties will be able to, I think, be interchangeable.
It seems like the defense has a lot of depth right now, does it not?
Yeah,
like you look at it and what we've been hearing, and now that the D line has that 6 number that Rhule brought up last week, it seems like depth is there.
Yeah, I much rather try to teach defense than offense, even though it's an offensive game. I just think offensive guys have a tendency to get more cute than defensive guys, I can
vibe with that.
Generally speaking, for like simplicity's sake, there's a reason defenses are usually ahead. Now, it's an offensive game, though, so at some point it tends to
But it makes
level up.
defense that more desirable because everybody focuses on the offense. So when you do have a strong defense, you either get a lot of credit for what you're doing or you just get credit for shutting down a powerful offense.
Yeah, and I think philosophically they want a lot of similarities. I think the design is multiple people can do multiple things within a huddle once they break the huddle. So just because this guy lined up here this play doesn't mean that the very next play he'll line up in the same place, right? Bonner may be a tight end. He may be a fullback. Borkacher may be an X receiver. Then he may be an inline tight end. Maybe Liebentritt goes from fullback to slot, and those guys have never left the huddle. Now, hard pressed that they'd all 3 be in the huddle at the same time, unless they're like in some version of.
Notice how you said 2 names though, and I said this to you last week. You said Borkacher and Liebentritt. Nebraska will win games this year because of guys that aren't their primary guys, like the big names.
I know you keep saying that.
Like you're of the world, the Liebentritts. Like
you're on that tough.
They're on the. I think that's where they find the most success because they have such variety with this offense that you're going to see the names that aren't emergers now emerge in the season. So that's how they'll win games this year.
I think you could be on to something, but the one guy whose name you better be saying that is supposed to be a guy is Jeff Sims. So outside of that, because I think running back will end up being by committee, especially if they run the ball as much as I think they want to run the ball, they're going to need 3.
Yeah, Jeff Sims, though, is the ace.
Maybe 4 guys.
He's the ace in the deck.
Right? I don't know if you're going to have a 60-catch guy, but you could have 3 28-catch guys. Right? So, I mean, I do think it'll be a lot of committee type stuff than you have a go-to. Although I think at running back they would prefer a bell cow.
Yeah, I would too. Most people probably would.
I go back and forth.
You would probably want one guy that is like you can lay your head on and say this is our guy, and then have your like a Ramir, like a third down back that can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have a battle there too, because even though Coach Rhule said AG is putting the ball on the ground way too much to be the starter, doesn't mean that he's out of the race.
Oh, what for sure.
He's
for
still there,
yeah.
and he's still going to compete for that job. So Gabe just can't sit back and relax.
And you caught him fresh off of that presser. You caught him fresh off of what had just happened out on the field too.
Yeah, you know what I'm
saying? And sometimes he's not interested in Coach Rhule. He's not interested in recalibrating. Sometimes you're just going to get him off the cuff, and it's still going to be good stuff. Sometimes he'll settle it down and give good thought. But I mean, it's just weird. Like, he's constantly learning and searching and tweaking, but it doesn't seem to disrupt his core beliefs, right? He's working on this practice structure. And I think he wants the timing right. Hey, 28 plays, 16 minutes, how many at a station? Where do we put scrap? Like, just for maximum efficiency's sake, to get ready, because now you're going to start to rep situational stuff. That's part of and I know people may pick at boredom, but I'm just telling you, how long can I run against, an underfront over and over and over again in 7-on-7 or inside fun or whatever it is that you call it, 9-on-7, before I'm like, okay, right? Like,
we do something different.
You're going to have your core stuff,
right?
But I think situationally they need to still keep it fresh, because there are very specific things that Minnesota will do, right? Like, how long, at what point did we stop letting our offense go against our defense at Westside and do Prep's defense? Well, that didn't start until early last week. 9-10 days out is plenty. 16, 18, 20 days out, you're compromising something else, because it's not just opponent specific.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's the word? It's philosophical. Like, you still have to introduce all of your stuff. You'll narrow it down for your opponent as the opponent gets closer.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's funny.
I think that's the boredom part that he's talking about.
It's funny you say that, because what I told Ravi was this. I said the only thing that I could think about is if you go too early, and because the excitement. I'm gonna stay here. The excitement it's still going to be there, whether you prepare a week and a half out, 2.5 weeks out. That excitement for game one is still going to be there regardless. But what are the complications that come if you get your doors blown off by Minnesota by practicing 2.5 weeks in advance? Where does your confidence go? What is the toll on the student athlete now, is what I thought, because now you only have a week to prepare for Colorado. How nervous are you feeling going into that? Because you took 2.5 weeks to prepare for Minnesota. You thought you were perfect, and boom, Minnesota gets the best of you. So I wondered like how that could affect the student athlete.
That's part of it, right? But I think he's thinking about more like, okay, this is how we line up versus a 2x1, or when they're in this front, this is kind of how we like to block it. And it will be very specific for how that particular team plays. Up until whatever point that is this week when they're doing Minnesota prep, it's, hey, what are our principles? Uncovered, covered. Let's just generally take a look at how we would block this against anything we saw. What are our base rules? Fundamentally, what do we want to do as an offense? Fundamentally, what do we want to do against the defense? Now, you can get, this is kind of jargony, but so forgive me. But like, let's say you normally play a 3-by-1 a certain way. Okay. Hey, this is how we get lined up to a 3-by-1. 3 receivers over here, 1 over here. Now you may get to Minnesota week and you may say, hey, listen, hey, our philosophy against 3-by-1 is this, but since this number 1 receiver that's singled over here is this guy, we would like to do this for this game. That's game prep specific.
Right.
Right. Hey, maybe we'll give an alert call. Right. Perfect example. Right. Bert's playing tight end. He's in line. Prep's in a 3-by. We will play that. Our philosophy will be similar, but it will be different when it's number 8, when it's Whaley from Bellevue West, and the 3-by is over here for trips. We won't play it the same way. The principles will remain the same, but
you may shade more.
But the specifics of how we do it will be vastly different. So I think that's really what he's talking about, because you don't want to get so into the micro that you lose the reality of who you are, right? I mean, there are just going to be core things that Apple does because it's an Apple way to do business, but they may tweak it a little bit for product specificity, if they want to be specific about a particular product or a launch or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's core things that they do, and then as they get closer, they're going to do this, but it'll still be part of fundamentally who they are. And I think I'm with him, though, because you're still working on the basics. You really are. I mean, he's implementing a whole new culture. You're implementing an offense. It's super multiple.
If it were year 2, would it be different? Like, could it be different?
It could, because you're not, and it depends on who's back, right? But you're able to expound and do more. I go back, we keep all of our practice plans, and we're like, hey, let's pull up week 1 from last year. And we'll say, ooh, we're ahead here, so let's do this instead. We kind of been slacking here. Let's catch up here. Like, we'll look at year over year just to see what we need to tweak. So you absolutely could make those changes.
Now you talk about like these core fundamental things that, are Coach Rhule and what makes Coach Rhule who he is. It's these single-digit jersey numbers too is something that it is not just his claim to fame, but it kind of is, since he now brought it over to Nebraska. They awarded their second set of single-digit jerseys last week by handing out jersey numbers to Henrich, who will be wearing 3, John Bullock, who snagged in the number 5, and Nash Hutmacher, who we already mentioned, will be wearing 0, which leaves 6, 8, and 9. So you have Nash at 0, Kemp at 1, Gifford at 2.
Can somebody not get Piper's number?
I think somebody
can somebody wear it, even though there isn't a spot? He would have had a spot.
Right. So it's just like, we know he's here, but I'm sure 6, 8, 9 will still be worn.
Okay.
You have Henrich at 3, Reimer at 4, Bullock at 5, and Sims at 7. So you have 6, 8, and 9. 3 more. Who gets them? You only have 2 offensive players right now at the moment, and if the idea is to treat
3.
them right, really 3. You're right, and it wouldn't shock me if we close defensive heavy. It wouldn't shock me. So, does Newsome get 6 back?
Man, like if I had my druthers, I would.
I'm leaving it all up to you. You have 3 more to go.
I can't make this anything, but if I had my pick, I'd like a secondary guy, and I'd like another skill guy.
Okay.
Like,
you're kind of like, but I wrote down 3 names, so I'm vibing with what you're saying.
And I get it. An O lineman can't have the number, but I'd love to see it go to an O lineman. So give me a DB, like a Newsome type. Somebody. I'm a little surprised. It's got to go to Newsome or Hartzog,
right?
Right?
And
like,
I'm guessing.
Am I crazy?
I'm guessing it's Newsome, just
because 6 is still open.
Yeah. Like if they really wanted to get Newsome out of there, I think somebody would have been taking 6 by now. Like they would have said, "Hey, Bullock, you're wearing 6." And
when I say skill on offense, like give me a Borkature, a Bonner.
I have Fedoni written down.
Somebody like that.
I have Fedoni wearing 8, little Kyle Pitts like, and let's just see what an 8 does from the tight end position.
Yeah, he's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Guess who I have as my 9? Who's wearing number 9? Off the radar.
I don't know. Do you still have a man crush on MJ Sherman?
I do, but this is don't think offense or defense here.
Oh, special teams. Alvano?
Buschini.
Oh, that would be nice.
I could see Brian Buschini.
Yeah, I just don't know if they've been
a solo
consistent
digit.
enough.
Because of just how I've heard Coach Rhule talk about him this offseason, how much of a leader he is.
Buschini?
And why not have a special
That would actually be cool.
guy?
You need
right?
That would encompass kind of what I'm after, right? Where it's that I'm not I guess I'm an inclusive guy, but not.
You want to give the family a hug, right?
Yeah, the United Colors of Bennington, or is it Benetton? Is that funny, Shane?
I think your last name is Benny.
Do they still do that? Do they still have those commercials?
I doubt it.
Remember when they used to have like the Rainbow Coalition represented?
Yes, I do.
It's 2023. I better stick to sports.
No,
never. Yeah, I think Hartzog, Newsome. Give me a tight end skill guy. No,
okay, just one up there,
and
one from the tight end skill.
I wouldn't be bugged by a special teamer. As kind of meh as they've been and talking about him the last 10 days, they might need a boost.
Again, a question I got asked the other day was, should I be concerned or should there be cause for concern that a guy hasn't been talked about like he once was? And I'm like,
well, it's only been 10 days for Alvano to be in the doghouse, right?
Right.
So it's not,
but not
that
just
big.
him, but
Yeah.
I've heard Judy's name
and he hasn't been super healthy. So like, Judy's a good one, but they did sneak him in the other day in the discussion that he was running with the second unit. So, I mean,
and here's the thing. There shouldn't be cause for concern because the coaching staff, you may be doing everything right, and that's just that. Like, the coaching staff doesn't bring you up because you're just doing everything right.
And I think right now, defensively, like off the top, I think they could play 18 guys comfortably right now, maybe 20, which is not bad for, like, if you feel comfortable, new system. Now, obviously, I think ideally, you'd like a legit backup for each. So 22 on defense, plus 3 or 4 guys that make you uncomfortable because they're on the sidelines that you'd like to get in. Like that's kind of how I think ideally it would work at the collegiate level, which is why I think he's so dead set on repping so many of these stations. I mean,
and they run a lot of stations.
Dude, you have no idea.
At least from what I've been able to see.
Now this makes terrible radio, but just sent this over like this morning. He said he had, golly, I can't click on it. Oh, there it is. Like that's pretty in depth. Right.
That's what he sent you?
Yeah, with the number of plays. Like that's 30 some odd plays in like a 17 minutes, 18 minute span.
I mean, there's like maybe 10 minutes in between things.
So
a station is 10 minutes and then you move.
So that's a lot of reps. You're not doing that to play 15 guys on defense. You're not doing that to play 15 guys on offense.
Why do you think he separated the groups too, right when fall camp opened
right.
up?
You're not doing it like this if you're not trying to get multiple guys ready, because this is a dirty little secret. Coaches like
I hate you, my dirty little secret.
Coaches like options. Right? If somebody's not getting if somebody's not getting it done, they want to be able to go to somebody else and feel comfortable. If somebody needs a blow, they want to be able to go to somebody else and feel comfortable. So you just don't set up structures like that and not want to play multiple people because that's a headache.
Well, and that's what he's always wanted to do, though.
Oh,
like I said, you go into fall camp and you separate the guys. What was it, 80, whatever the number ended up being. You had your young guys in one group, your old guys in one group. It's so those freshmen could get reps.
Yeah.
It's so everybody could get a rep and earn a spot and just, earn playing time. Tony White was saying that too. He loved the physicality of the defense on scrimmage day. And he's like, if you're making plays, you're finding the field. I want guys that can play 10, 12, 15 is what Rhule said last week.
Do you remember what I really liked his last couple of pressers before the end of spring ball? He said, with the way that we'll practice in the fall, you'll have opportunities to win jobs. That let me know it was going to be highly competitive.
It's open season.
And it was going to be physical. I mean, look at the clips they send out. And I get it. I know they're selective, but there's always pads cracking.
Mm-hmm.
So, and guys are going to the ground. They just are. So it's like, again, the best ability will be availability, and he'll keep guys healthy. But they will practice a certain way. We were just charting cramps and trying to get acclimated for the weather. We have a really good strength and conditioning guy. So he's done a lot of research. He just came back from a couple clinics and he passed around this information from a couple of scientific studies. And he said the number one reason that teams cramp in week one or early on in the season is typically not due to lack of conditioning. It is due to lack of simulating game speed, game situations. So for 2 weeks, you practice at a certain level with a certain amount of speed and a certain amount of crispness. And we sprint to start practices off, right? Like, we're in 4 groups. I mean, you're sprinting. It is speed competitive drills. It is top end. We've only been done stretching 6 minutes. And I mean, we're getting the top speed. We're just going to do this over and over and over again because we're trying to eliminate cramping. We want to be in game ready shape, right? Just so it's like that's why he does what he does. Like, just you watch a practice and you're like, man, that is real speed. They change drills and stations at it's transitional speed. It's like sudden change. Hey, there's a fumble, defense on the field. Like, there's a sense of urgency, right? That's how they change situational in drills, because that's the best way that he knows how to get guys ready.
Well, and it's how you keep guys fresh, right? And if you are going to try to play multiple guys and you're standing on the sidelines for a little bit and you're stiffening up, well, if you're going through those motions, like you said, if you're stretching for 6 minutes and then sprinting, which is what you guys do at Westside, but like it's same sort of idea at Nebraska, it's how you keep guys fresh at any moment in the game.
And I think when he talks about, because again, he's giving you clues, right? When he talks about it being a grown man game, they practice grown man practices. Does that make sense? Like, he's not going to say this is a grown man game and then me and you are like, we're playing 7-on-7.
I played intramural basketball with a former college basketball player, and he said a scream one time, and the dude fell, and he gets over him. He goes, "That's a grown man scream."
Yeah, they're practicing grown man situations. Doesn't mean W's. It just means you won't be ill prepared.
We'll be right back.
We will be back in 5 minutes. We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute.
He's very enthusiastic.
We will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Oh, I mean, that's a testament to them. You know, I didn't do anything. Those guys are OOU guys, and it's really cool when that kind of reward comes from the team. You know, that coaches are out of it. It's a team honor. You know, and it's really neat for good guys to be rewarded, and those guys are good guys. Not that we don't have a lot of them in the locker room. It's really fun to see, because those are the guys who you kind of noticed early on that they were doing things the right way, and it's cool that they got rewarded that way.
That's defensive coordinator Tony White talking about how guys do things the right way. You know who did something the wrong way? Shane. He did not tell me today was his birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Shane. Oh,
well, thanks.
Hey, I think Omar Brown has a message for you. Can you play it?
Coming.
I know. He's always got a message for me.
Omar's coming. Hey, Omar's coming. Isn't it weird? I always quote that, and I couldn't even get through one season of that. I'm so disappointed in myself.
But at least you can, say that you watched a few episodes and can say the line. And
I do
you
like
watched
to do the
it
whistling.
enough.
Yeah.
I'm just
R.I.P.
I'm laughing at everybody coming our way on Twitter. Well, at least I'm starting with Brian here, our boy out of breath, Brian.
Oh, what'd B say?
He goes, I told my 13-year-old what Andrew Rogers, CC, said about squatting up last week. He said, you better not be trash.
So
got it. Noted.
So Mike has said that he'd carry you. He said, don't worry.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll be carried.
He said, don't worry, I'll carry you.
You know what? I'm a good listener.
He
so you want to go left? I'll go left.
I had to get on him last night.
Once you get knocked, though,
he was
don't come crying back to me.
Extremely loud. And he'd lost somebody took his AirPods because he was irresponsible in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So my sister in St. Louis sent him some new AirPods. And they're actually better than he had some Apple, the white ones that all you guys have.
Oh, AirPods, yeah.
So she sent him like these Bose, and they're noise canceling. They're really, really.
Are they the little guys that are hard? Like
so
you can hardly
we
see?
could barely put the nubs like in his ear.
Oh
to
yeah,
put 'em.
the rubber piece.
And so I was like, man, you should be all set, right? Like relax with being loud. And he came out of his room and he's like, man, it's intense in here. Like, you just don't know. It's intense. I was like, how intense can a video game be? Right.
Saying like,
And it was super quiet because this was my last real weekend to not have much to do. Caleb had Saturday morning practice, snuck in a workout Sunday. Micah just had weigh-ins, and that was it. Like, it was. So I was
right.
Yeah.
You did say you were looking forward to Sunday.
I was like, it was, I didn't do much. I had to put some furniture back on the deck because we got it.
Restained, right?
Yeah. And guess who wants their deck stained?
Your guy next door.
Yeah. Yeah. So
not just a hat rack, my friend Cam.
So my man, he put it on like the next door neighbor thing.
Oh, like can anybody do it?
And I was like, hey, I'll trade you one of those nice shots of tequila you have.
Hey.
So I'm gonna go down there and get me information because I haven't seen him in a couple weeks.
What is this? Our guy?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, not just a next door neighbor.
Yeah.
The
next door
neighbor.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So, yep.
How about that?
And my deck stainer found him. He's a Low Vikes guy, so he played and coached in the organization that.
I think I remember you saying that.
Yeah. Listen, he has no signage on his truck. It's complete word of mouth.
That's even.
He
cooler.
drives like the kind of van that you warn your kids about, but it has tools in it. A lot of tools. There's no room to like.
There's no music playing on top.
There's no black phone. There's none of that. It's
There's no puppies in the trunk.
Yeah, so I like it.
Candy.
I left my house. Micah wanted to go get some work out at Westside. He wanted to run routes, and that was it. Operation Chill Mode.
Hey, that's good.
It's thick out there. So, and did you see TK's post on StreamYard? Like his brother's team, they can't. Or did he tell me on Twitter?
He probably told you on Twitter because I didn't see it on stream.
Like his brothers, they can't practice because they couldn't get everybody there in the morning.
Side note, congratulations to him. He just got married.
TK?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what's he messing around with us for?
Well, he just got back from the honeymoon.
Oh, okay. We probably need some.
He needs some guy time.
Yeah, you need some levity. We're here for you, TK. Yeah, so they couldn't practice, and I haven't asked like Coach Martin and some of the guys at North and Central what they're doing for a night practice or just the helmet only thing, but like there's definitely some adjustments.
Yeah, the hard part now is school's in session, so you can't get away with what was it Papio South or was it La Vista that did the
La Vista?
Okay,
they did the
midnight practice. Yeah, you can't get away with that right now.
Yeah,
but that would be the time to practice.
They've got a good opener. They got Miller North. So, because I think like I would call Pappy like a true dark horse. A lot of people like Miller North, so they're not going to be a dark horse now. They were back in February when I said I thought that they could.
Right. Now they've caught up to the
Well,
hype.
I just think it's time to start talking about it. I think it's just because it was fresh on my brain for whatever reason because I just seen those guys at the clinic. But that's a nice little week 1 matchup with Papio and Millard North because I think Papio offensively, Coach Williams is such a good offensive mind. He may cause, if they can block Millard North up front, he may cause them some fits, like with concepts. I just don't know if the Monarchs can slow Millard North down.
Well, Millard North is high up there in the preseason polls. What was the adjustment? Did we see an adjustment this week? I saw that Sauter shared.
Is his poll out? I don't know.
I thought he did.
I don't think there should have been much movement.
I don't either because only 4 teams played.
Yeah, I hope coaches didn't too much overreact. Everybody was kind of down on Bellevue West. I'm like, can we give Prep some credit? It's like I text you. It's like I was impressed with. I thought open field tackling kept Prep in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and Bellevue West remained at 2. And,
they're just
Prep. So was Prep ranked or no?
No, they were receiving votes.
So they're still receiving votes.
Yeah, they were just receiving votes,
and everybody else remained the same.
Yeah, I wouldn't make too much out of that.
North, were they already 2? I'd have to go back
2?
and look. Yeah, it was Elkhorn North.
Oh, and B? Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and then,
so B went Bennington, Elkhorn, North, Scott.
And that's what it is, and Norris is 6th. They were previously 8th. Okay, yeah. I'm looking at it now. I can read things sometimes.
I can't read.
That's true. That is true sometimes.
So it's it'll be. I just hope. I mean, you got to keep kids safe, but it's like I was telling you this morning.
A lot of water breaks.
I wasn't whining for other schools this morning. I just was.
No, but you thought about it because that makes sense. There are some kids
because
I've go to work.
I've been at schools where
unless you pick them up,
you
right?
Can't pull off a morning practice,
right?
So I just was like, man, I hope these guys don't have to.
You would be the guy too that would pick up 4 players to bring them.
I did. I drove a van. It was 100. Then we got a new one donated. My buddy Jeff found it in Kansas City. It was 18 passenger. And of course, the district said we couldn't keep it because something about receiving gifts. We painted it and everything. So we ended up giving it to, it broke my heart at first, but we ended up giving it to Dotzler.
Cool.
For his
like painted
group.
It red and put the logo on there and all that?
No, it was white with like blue Northwest stuff, and we redid the whole deal. And the superintendent of purchasing would not allow us to keep it, so we donated it. So we kept driving the raggedy vans. I think they've got new ones since then. That was like 2011. But yeah, like I wonder where TK's brother coaches, because you're gonna have. I'm all for safety. I am, and then if you bring the kids back for a night practice, and you have to do it all week, yes, you are getting them in game situations, but rest is important too, to be able to get to bed. So like if you're Westview and you're going 6:15 to 8:15, that's not ideal either.
No.
So hopefully the weather will chill and folks can get their work in.
Well, you had to give up a gift, which was your van. I have a gift for Shane on his birthday.
What'd you get him?
It's a 6-pack courtesy of Zipline.
Ooh.
Yeah, we have some Acres Ale for Shane over there. We'll actually hear Nick Baugh later tonight at the Schick and Nick show here at the restaurant. But Shane,
can you believe it's been a year already?
No. That's pretty wild.
I remember sitting back there like laughing, cheering them on like a little kid.
They
was like,
so goofy.
Hey, they're back.
Love those guys. Yes, Shane, a Zipline is on your way. And I know since you're pacing yourself, you'll probably not get to number 6, but don't worry. Nebraska still is trying to figure out who's wearing number 6.
Let it be Q.
Oh, so we got that coming up?
No, we have the sports cleanup coming up. Presented by Warhorse Casino.
Clean up.
We got a lot of
cleaning up
headlines over the weekend that we can get to. We sort of kind of mentioned the Sterling O'Malley fight in the opener. Yeah. I'll get DB's thoughts in the cleanup as well. So stick around for that. More CNC after the break.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Things you wanted us to get to from the weekend, but we didn't.
Clean up on aisle 6.
It's the Sports Cleanup.
All right, the Sports Cleanup presented by War Horse Casino, one of our newest partners. You can place your bets in person at the War Horse Sportsbook in Lincoln. Warhorse is the only casino in Nebraska where sports bets can be placed, and they must be placed in person at the kiosks that are there. And sportsbooks tellers can also take your wager. So you can either go up and do it yourself, map out your bet, or you can go up to the counter if you have your things written out. With the Warhorse Casino app, you can view live odds and build your bets anywhere and then scan the QR code at the casino to place your wager. You can place bets on nearly every major sporting event, one of them being UFC. I placed a bet on UFC, courtesy of Brian Edwards last week. And remember that little parlay that we drew up? It was like the five top fights, and then we got to the main card. And I don't know if you were counting, DB, but there were 4 green check marks going into the Sterling O'Malley fight. And then the last leg was Sterling money line. Was that a red X or a green check?
That would be a red X.
That would be a red X. And I went 4 out of 5, which means the parlay did not hit.
God, you hit that a ton.
I know. 4 out of 5.
I like an uncanny amount. I think. Oh, is that?
That's what I stood to win.
Like, you know, like if you just made each of those like a little $5 single.
Oh yeah. Oh, trust me. Did you think Sterling though was going to get TKO'd in the second round?
No, but you know what? I was happy he didn't make a ton of excuses. He got caught.
He did. He fumbled.
It's an
right?
overhand right, little counter shot,
and he can't be mad at Goddard for stopping that. He felt like it was a little early, but at least he didn't make any excuses because he had forgotten what state he was in. Like the physical.
Oh yeah,
he was not.
Yeah, not like the actual state.
So he was about to be done. So,
and he had O'Malley too right there in the second round. O'Malley falls to the deck.
Yep, and it was kind of a weird exchange. I think he thought O'Malley may have been playing possum, but it was such a close first round. But that ends his bantamweight run too, because I think he won 9 in a row.
Well, and they gave him the first round.
Yeah.
Most people gave him 10-9.
Yeah.
And then whoop.
So
belt in the hands of Dr. Pink Hair.
You can you be rest assured there'll be a rematch. I didn't love that card, especially after Magny got hurt. Gary looked dominant. Just totally sweeping his leg. I was having like flashbacks of the Karate Kid. We're like, sweep the leg. But Sensei, you have any problems with that? No, Sensei.
Are you a Karate Kid fan? Like, where would that 1 to 10 scale rank up on a movie for you?
I liked it. Like, so I turned off the one.
It's like a 6
with,
for me.
The young lady in the little bonsai tree. Like, I didn't watch that one.
Is that the third one or something?
I don't know. I don't
know.
I
don't remember.
I had bits and pieces that bad boy, but I watched the first couple, like him going back to Osaka and seeing Sato.
Right, and that's just not my favorite film.
Can I do that and be okay? That was Mr. Miyagi, by the way.
Yeah,
R.I.P.
You can do whatever you want and be okay.
Oh, we lost him
a long time ago.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, dead or alive, DB?
I don't know. He was old. That was I just know him as
Shane. What was his age?
I don't know. I
just know him as Al on Happy Days.
Maybe 89 when he
or
passed.
Wait, was he Al or was the big nose guy Al? He did run the.
He died at
Arnold's
86.
Was he Arnold?
86.
Yeah, he was Arnold.
Miyagi.
Yeah, Pat Morita, I think is his name.
That is correct.
Thank you.
He was Arnold.
Yeah. Hey, can you imagine?
Arnold was Gary Coleman.
Shut up, Shane. Hey, yeah, he's talking about different strokes.
No,
you got to watch this little dude. He has a thing for
little. Yeah, happy birthday.
Hey,
he has a thing for little people.
You know what it is about my birthday being on the 21st?
What's that?
More often than not, it marks the first day of school.
You know who else's birthday's today? My mom's. Happy birthday, Mama.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yep.
Did you forget?
No, I sent her a text at 5:30.
Oh.
Yeah, happy birthday to my mama. Yeah.
Shane.
It's my cousin's birthday, too. Everybody's born on August 21st.
Did you watch?
Happy birthday to your cousin. That's cool.
Have you realized that the Mariners have won 6 in a row?
I sure have. And I
mean, let's go.
And as you walked out the door to, go get some ice in your cup earlier today, I said, but wait, did you see the Cardinals didn't get swept?
I still think you can find a way to get to your win total.
I don't know, man. They just lost. They lost 3 of their last 4.
Mm-hmm.
They had it, too, against the Mets on, was it Friday? Was that the close one with Waino?
Yep.
Man, just I don't know.
You've won 5 out of your last 10, and you had to go 3 games above 500 when we did the math Thursday.
Yep.
You had to go 22-19.
Yeah, and so they just have to go on a run. They have to do what the Mariners just did. They have to win 6 in a row at some point and just get me back in check.
The Mariners are a half a game back of 3rd place in the AL West, but they are right there as the 3rd team in the wild card standing. So it can still happen, Andrew. Now, what would you do? Be honest.
Okay.
If it's the Mariners and the Braves in the World Series. Because I'm already going to be right about the Rangers in the playoffs.
Yep. What would I do? I mean,
wouldn't that be something?
I would brag. I would brag and say there was some guy that I sat next to for the majority of the year, and he was like, hey, you should watch out for the Mariners. I'm like, I like the Mariners. He's like, no, but in the World Series. If that happened, DB, I'll give you a high five, and I'll get you that Gus Varland jersey I've been promising.
And they could potentially do it in spite of my man Castilla not having the Cy Young year that I predicted.
Yeah, they're only 3 games back now.
So it's like he didn't hold up his end of it, but hopefully the M's do.
Now, if you're looking for local baseball, you can go check out the Omaha Storm Chasers. They are back at home this week against St. Paul all week, so you can get your tickets and go support the Royals AAA affiliate. The Royals not too hot, 40 and 86. So
that's a.
But Bobby Witt Jr. is fun, huh?
Well, probably since the break, right? Like he didn't get off to this first half of the season wasn't in typical Bobby Witt fashion, but I mean the perm's looking good. I like the hair coming out of the locks, but
I have something for you here.
Okay, talk to me. What do we got? Another inside the park home run.
What is POFF? Is that playoff like potential? Is it okay?
The percentage?
Yep. Okay. Yeah. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams that have less than a 1% chance of making the playoffs. Who are they?
The Royals.
Yes.
The A's.
Yes.
Less than a 1% chance.
Less than 1%.
Pittsburgh Pirates.
That is one.
Well, if it's the Pirates, then it has to be the Cardinals.
The Cardinals actually have a 0.1% chance of still making the playoffs.
Okay. So we have.
But you're pretty much right there.
A's, Royals.
A's, Royals, Pirates. You have 3 more. 1 is American League still. 2 are in the National League.
Chicago White Sox.
That is 1.
And then 1 National League?
2 in the National League. Both in different divisions.
The Rockies.
That is 1.
And
So I said both in different divisions. That should be your biggest hint. So there's only one division you can really choose from here.
I just don't know if it's the Mets or the Nats. I'll go with since they're technically in last place, I'll go with the Nats.
That is correct. Nice work. All 6. Not too shabby. Yeah. Can you believe 6 teams have less than a 1% chance at making the playoffs?
I think Rockies isn't a surprise.
A's aren't a surprise. Royals aren't. I'd say the White Sox could be looked at as a team that, like, at this point shouldn't be less than 1%.
Okay, and this is no disrespect to my man Nate Klaus, because I love Nate. I dubbed him Nate the Great, but I know he's a diehard White Sox fan. But I say this in all questioning. Like, when was this stretch that they were supposed to be like the franchise? Was it like 16 to 21 or 15 to 20?
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
15 to 20. Because I kept every year, like, this was the team. And it's hard to believe. And I know they won the division a couple times.
I think COVID, like, really set everything, like, back to normal.
But they
with the
never
White Sox.
got over. They just.
They had the team. They had it. They had the pitching,
and remember
they had the prospects.
3 years in a row, they were like decimated by injuries too.
Yeah, and Moncada never showed up to be the player that he was projected to be. You had Robert that did, but even Eloy Jimenez, he was one of those injured guys. Yeah,
and he had some fluky injuries.
Yep, and
like the rib cage thing or whatever that was.
Anderson was always old reliable for them.
So I thought he would move. I thought they would move.
I was actually shocked he didn't. And you could tell that he got frustrated this year because he started throwing punches.
That's a lot of salary to eat up too. I mean, for probably a rental.
But then you had obviously Giolito coming off that big season. Cease is up there now as
I'm still a Dillon guy. I just can't believe he never really put it together.
And then there's one more. Who's the other young guy that pitched? It wasn't. It was in the rotation with Lynn.
Was this pre or post Rodon moving?
Pre.
So a young guy.
Kopech.
Oh yeah. Well, he's still
there.
Yeah, he's still, and I like his stuff too.
Yeah. So, but this is, what they had, right? They had Giolito, they had Rodon, they had Kopech, Cease, Lynn. Like that's a rotation. Those are some dogs.
God,
they had everybody.
If we could get Zip It, Martina, it'd be nice if we get something out of Lynn. I'm not banking on it.
He could be good though.
We'll see. Clutch.
That'll do it for the show today. We'll see you tomorrow.